I call to order a meeting of the Finance Committee for March 5th, 2025. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight. A couple announcements that I make. First one is if you could silence your cell phones. There's probably a little switch on the side, assuming you have an Apple. I don't know what you have. But if you could silence the cell phones, that'd be great. The next thing is this meeting is being shown live on local broadcast channel by SMAC and recorded for future internet viewing and enjoyment. And with that, looking for a motion to open the public hearing.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Okay, Diane's a second on that. Okay, Carolyn made the motion. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none. Public hearing is now open. Yes, Dave.
Thank you, Vaughn. I just have a point of personal privilege I'd like to make. There's been a little bit of, I'll call it confusion about what we do on the Finance Committee and how we go about doing our business. And I just want to kind of make sure everybody's kind of clear. A lot of people, when they come in and volunteer for the Finance Committee, they come in for different reasons. Some people, they care about a certain department. They might care about collective bargaining. They might care about capital projects. Everybody has a different kind of thing at the highest priority of what drove them to sign up to do it. Some people do it because they just want to make sure that taxpayers are just not having to feel distress when money is needed and we're tight as a drum and one little move in the wrong direction ends up creating overrides. And there are towns out there, they have override after override after override. And we try in this town to avoid overrides when we can. That's kind of been the tradition of Stoughton. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that since the beginning of time, we've operated our budgets, created our budgets without a financial policy statement. We haven't had one. We kind of go one year to the next. We look at what's in front of us 1 year at a time. I also want to say that the budget team, the leadership at the town hall with Tom Coulter as the town manager, perfect budgets. They get reported beautifully. There's nothing wrong with the way that we do our business. But it's not just about having a perfect DOR disciplined budget that gets submitted. There are policies that help you avoid distress in the budget because at the end of the day, you could have perfect reporting, but still have distress. And we're trying to do our job in order to avoid those situations that create pressure on the budget and put pressure on having too many situations where you might end up in an override situation. So I just ask the members to allow the vetting to just happen. Questions don't have to be answered. We reserve the right to accept a lack of an answer. Now, we might choose not to be positive with how we vote at the end of it because we're not satisfied with the information we got. We should be just allowed to ask the question, no matter what that question is. Financial questions sometimes have to do with revenue, the sources. So I just want everybody to understand that we're trying to do our best. All of us have the same thing in mind. We have something that we're trying to make the town better. We're trying to do it with financial matters of the town. We just want it to be better. Okay, so as we all try to make the town better, please just allow people to ask sometimes tough questions. They don't always have to be answered, but at least we can be allowed to ask them. And that's all I have to say.
Can I have a point of
Thank you.
privilege too, please? Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dave. Yes, Jonna.
Thank you, Vaughn. On the heels of what Dave said, I agree with him, and I had something prepared to say. It's very short and sweet, but I do agree with what he said. I just wanted to say my piece as well. As an advisory board, FinCom members have every right to vet monies and salaries. And when we are in the midst of doing just that, it's extremely offensive and wrong for an official to attempt to repress the vetting process by erroneously labeling it as derogatory in a blatant effort to shut it down. And I just don't feel we need to be vilified for doing our job.
All right, thank you very much for that, Jonna. Yes, Carolyn.
Since we're going to go along with points of personal privilege, I would like to ask all of our members, we all are here for the same, well, we're all here for the purpose. We all believe we're doing the best for the town, and we all want to serve our, our community. The point of these Finance Committee's hearings are not for Finance Committee members to educate the public. The point of these hearings are for us to get information from the town so that we can make recommendations to town meeting. That is our job. And I understand everybody wants to ask questions, and that's great. But it's also, sometimes it's better to talk less and listen more. I have to remind myself of that as well. And so, sometimes the rest, it doesn't hurt to be considerate of your fellow Finance Committee members who may not want to listen to the third degree when there's other ways that you can make your point, especially since a lot of times the point's been made once in an evening is often enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carolyn. We're going to get to the budget here. Town budget, public health, FY26. Item 5 on the agenda is Article 7, Public Health Association Enterprise Fund Budget. Do we have anyone to present this?
I'll turn it over to you for your statement. Mr. Chairman, the Director of the Department has an opening statement. I would like to just say one thing about the VNA before we begin. I don't think it's any news that every year the VNA, since Medicare charges have changed and continue to change, VNA has been running at a deficit. Town meeting spoke loud and clear that they're willing to absorb the deficit because they want their VNA. And I think it's almost as sacred, and I understand completely, as trash is in the town of Stoughton. And I respect that. But we have reached agreement with the director of the department, with our team here, and with the chief of the fire department, that this business model is simply unsustainable. Medicare reimbursement now covers almost 75% of all of our revenues. If you're getting Medicare reimbursements, you have to cover a variety of services, from speech therapy to occupational therapy to physical therapy, as well as nursing. We can't make that profitable when we lose money on every single or most transactions, on those ancillary non-nursing transactions. We may get $60 for the visit, and the $60 visit that we get reimbursed for may cost us $180, and it's getting worse. So this year, we're looking to reduce our costs. We've got a $160,000 grant, but we are going to make a recommendation that we change our business model completely and stop taking Medicare reimbursements. And what we would do is transition to a program called Mobile Integrated Health. And the division would stop being an enterprise fund, and it would become part of our EMS. And they would do mobile treatment, if you will. What I've learned from this, and Mike is going to speak about it a little later, the hospitals don't want you twice within the first 30 days because they don't get paid for the second visit. I always wondered why hospitals didn't want the business. If you go back there twice, if you go back there within the first 30 days, they don't get reimbursed. So the city of Boston and the town of Hanover have done this now, and we're going to model it. We've got some resources that can help us, where the nurses will work closely with the fire department to make proactive visits of people that need care, but the hospitals don't want them. We believe that's the business model. It's a complete change from what we're doing. We'll get paid market rates from insurance companies. So should you pass this budget, this will be the last year that we will be using this business model, and we'll be looking to develop a business plan that we will give you because you deserve to have it, a business plan as to what the mobile integrated health program is all about. Boston EMS and Hanover is going to give us their business plan that we can adapt to Stoughton, but simply billing Medicare for the way we've been doing it, although a valued service of the town, is not sustainable financially, and the service under mobile integrated health is far superior to what they get right now through Medicare. Thank you for allowing me to make that introductory statement. Now, through you, Mr. Chair, turn it back over to the head of the VNA.
Well, thank you very much for the statement. This is on page 79.
Do we have any questions?
Good evening, everyone. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'm here to entertain any questions. Just wanted to point out our budget is down ever so slightly, but is down. We have cut our costs in a lot of areas here as far as our expenses. As far as the mobile integrated health, the town manager mentioned, when I could give you a little bit of information, but this is all still in the early process that I wouldn't have enough information on that right now. But if you have any questions on my budget, I'd be happy to take them.
All right, well, thank you very much. Lauren, do you have a question on this?
Could I ask a question about the MIH? So I'm aware of MIH being kind of like emergent, like if you're dehydrated or whatever. They don't provide PTOT, speech, stuff like that. So the patients that you currently work with would not be able to get those services. Is that right?
Correct. Under that model, they wouldn't, no, but we would be a great resource for referring them to, for those services, but we would still have nursing. So when people say they love their nurses, we're still here.
All right, thank you.
Carolyn?
Thank you. I guess I also have a question about the MIH, and I know it's soon, but would that handle mental health issues as well, or the things that border on it?
Good evening, Chief Carroll. So this is really fresh off the presses. We talked about this yesterday afternoon in town manager's office. It's something that I believe that the healthcare system has to go to. We'd just like to get out in front of it. There are, I guess, some more advanced departments that are doing it. I think that we can really take it on a whole new level. And I've been told throughout the state, you guys have the perfect model right now. You have the visiting nurses that actually do nursing. You have a hospital that really will want it because, like, the South Shore Hospital has their own MIH. Good Sam doesn't. We have Norwood Hospital is no more, right? So I believe, and I did read, and I really just printed up a real quick model. I reached out to a few Dr. Muse, who's our medical controller, and also their medical controller has started a meeting. He is spearheading the one Plymouth County did for a short time. So, but from what I've read, yes, there's all different aspects of it. It's how deep do we want to get into it, you know? And of course, reimbursement's always a question.
Right.
The thing is, in talking to Congressman Lynch, the hospitals have to do something, right? So I think we're really getting out ahead of it. I would say, one, that's really premature to start putting the numbers together.
Okay, thank you. And I guess my other question is, would there be like a committee formed, like with community representation, to help develop this over the next year?
Well, I certainly wouldn't be against it because I think this is really about providing for the community, right? And I think the community stakeholders, and I think that, you know, any interaction we can have with that, I wouldn't oppose it. I think it's a great idea. I think the more we have, just as long as, you know, we can still move forward. We're not
Right,
just holding it
right.
up the
No,
process.
I understand, right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
I just want to ask a quick question here. The MIH, that's not in this budget, correct? We're talking about future. I just wanted to be clear. Thank you. Lisa, you have a question?
Hi, good evening. So I just want a little bit of clarification. And somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it was at last town meeting, that we were being told that we would be absorbing $400,000, that the VNA program was originally subsidized, and then the subsidy went away, so that then the cost of the program fell on the Stoughton taxpayers. And then last year, I thought we were told we were absorbing $400,000 of that in the budget, but yet I'm seeing approved at town meeting 564, and now this year being at 591,000. Could somebody help clarify that for me?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the members of the Finance Committee. The town has, for multiple years, been financing the Public Health Nurse Enterprise Fund because it is not self-sufficient. A couple of years ago, part of the budget was that you transferred funding from ARPA funds. ARPA funds are no longer available. Currently, the funding sources as defined on the reports you got last week, $300,000 will be coming from their retained earnings. That retained earnings came from monies that were transferred during fiscal '24 to keep the VNA open. And additionally, this year we have $260,000 being funded by the general free cash is how that will be funded. The receipts that have historically been coming in for the VNA are roughly $440,000. So over the course of time with the $1 million budget, we are funding over $600,000. And as Mr. Coulter said, it's just not sustainable. Thank you.
Okay. And just as a quick follow-up, I don't know who can answer this piece of it. Do we have community other services in surrounding towns? I forget what the name of it's called. That would be able to provide this service to our Stoughton residents?
I'm sorry. There's competitive VNA services, is that what you're asking?
Yes, that
Yes.
other local towns also,
Oh,
but that they would service our taxpayers. Yep, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Any other questions from the committee? Dave?
Thank you, Vaughn, to you. It's just like every time I see changes with like where personnel gets moved from one line to another, I'm confused again on this one. So just help me out. So the assistant administrator, it's showing .8. Is that a part-time position, first of all? Just to make sure I understand. Does .8 mean that it's one person who's not working a full week, 4 days a week or something, or
exactly. She is 4 days a week.
4 days a week? So when I look at the source being the VNA health nurses, it got pulled away from that to this line item. I just see numbers that don't make sense. It looks like $19,000 was subtracted from the VNA health nurses, and then the actual is the only basis I have is the FY24 actuals of 79.9. And now it's showing 83,520. So exactly where does this position start from the town meeting approved? I'm using town meeting approved in terms of my looking at it. I don't look at the actual. I want to know where did we start from the appropriation, not some number under that. I want to know what that full number was.
Correct.
And then what the differential is on the new year.
So the previous director had retired in 2023, but that was fiscal 2024, and I was the assistant director.
Okay.
So when she left, we continued to take my salary out of the assistant director. So then I didn't get appointed until last spring so that was already after the budget had been done. So then we did appoint another person as assistant director, and I moved up to director.
Okay, so
So
maybe,
that's where her, so the new assistant director, some of that came out of the nurse's salary.
is there a number that I could put in the empty spot here that says town meeting approved across from the assistant administrator? If they did have it parsed out, what would the number be? You see what I mean? Like, if there was a number, like if I subtract, I only see 19,000. So it's obviously not the whole amount for that position, right? Because the actual shows that they used close to 80,000. So what would be the, just help me out in understanding, if there was going to be a number of how much was appropriated for that position, how much would have been appropriated?
So it wasn't appropriated, so we had taken it out of the budget. So for town meeting, it wasn't approved. It wasn't until after I was appointed that we approved.
Oh, okay. All right, so I was trying to find out what the increase was, and I get a different result each time I try to do the math, so I'm having trouble doing the math. So I guess I can't do the math. That's okay. I mean, if it's just the way it's structured, should we restructure, and then it's hard to follow the, where everything landed, right? Okay, that's all I had.
Okay, thanks for that, Dave. Any other questions from the committee on Town Budget Public Health, Article 7, Public Health Association Enterprise Fund Budget for FY26? Hearing none.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr.
Follow up
Col-
with a little more information to Ms. Lyons on her question.
All right, thank you.
You asked about VNAs. We're one of only two in the entire state that are publicly funded and publicly managed. The others are private sector VNAs, but they would take our clients. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Any questions or comments from the public? Town Budget Public Health, FY26, Article 7. Yes, Chet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
To follow up on you, Mr. Coulter, you say other towns have private, not VNA, but they have private services that does the same thing to VNA, the health. The VNA actually, yes.
There are
does.
private VNAs throughout the Commonwealth, not necessarily in each town, but they're for-profit organizations. What I'm saying, Chet, is we are one of only two that is a public VNA.
I understand it. My question is, have we looked into that, into the privatize of the VNA?
I think we should. Town meeting made incredibly clear to us as the management team last year that they want their VNA, and town meeting said we're prepared to pay for it. So we didn't look at it at that time. That may have been somewhat disregarding their town meeting's instructions. But with the cost that it's costing us now, with the continued decline in reimbursements, we have to look at all options. We're just very fortunate, as the chief pointed out, because we have a VNA. It's almost like we're the last one standing, and because Good Sam does not have an MIH, we are a perfect candidate for this business model. So, sure, like we're looking at with rubbish, we look at every option. One of them may be to bring to the public's attention, just using private sector VNAs. I think that's responsible. But I do believe, as a business person, the MIH is not only a sign of the times. We happen to be in Stoughton in a perfect position to execute that plan, where we can give our citizens the same VNA services they've always had, but making it profitable.
No, I understand the premise, but my point is we're tying up the more so with the VNA and the fire department, and then I don't see how this is going to be profitable. I think it's still going to cost us money. And I think the way to go, like we're doing everything else, should privatize, eliminate a lot of expenses that we have to put out in this town and protect the taxpayers. I mean, like everything, it seems like, I'm
Sure.
not going to get into it. But
Sure, I
my
take that
point is
point.
that we should privatize and get out of the ambulance business.
So
I mean,
I
not
do-
the ambulance business, the
Sure.
VNA business.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I do take that point, and it should be something that's studied. But as your town manager, I was given instruction by the legislative body, do not touch that. So I agree with your point, Chet, completely, that we need to look at it, cost it out, understand it, look closely at, that's why we're not doing it tomorrow, look closely at MIH and cost that out, look at the possibility of it being a for-profit business. Our only objective is to maintain the services to the citizens of this town at the least cost. And the way it's being done right now because of Medicare is certainly not at all the least cost. But I do want to remind the members that of that amount of money, because it's an enterprise fund, it's got approximately $266,000 of it is an indirect cost. It's what we in the town bill them, their overhead and services. We don't do that with other departments like highway, like water and sewer. Oh, no, we do with water and sewer, with highway. So a big piece of it is the indirect cost as an enterprise fund. So we're not looking just try to get rid of the indirect costs because you don't lose it, right? It'll go to the town side. We're trying to find a business model where the citizens of this town can continue to enjoy the service they've come to love, but find a way to make a buck on it. And if we can, we can. If we can't, we can't. It's going to be up to the, it's not up to town meeting. It's up to the management of this town, like 911 was. But I would not make that move without getting feedback from the public. It is a sacred service. But I do respect your opinion, Chet. I understand that.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Do we have any questions or comments from the public? Town Budget Public Health FY26, Article 7. Cynthia, please identify yourself for the record.
Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street. I can't tell you, as a disabled senior, how much I resent some of the comments. We are taxpayers. We've been paying taxes for 50 or 60 years, and now we need a little help. And I know the federal government is letting us down, but it's very important that our seniors who built this community be served in the community by community members, people they know. When I had my great fall, because I have insurance through the state, I did deal with one of these for-profit VNAs, and the people were very nice. But they didn't know me from Adam, and I didn't know them either. As long as the people in Stoughton, the majority, wish to continue serving our seniors in their homes with their own local people, I think they deserve that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Cynthia. Do we have any other questions or comments from the public? Town Budget at Public Health, FY26, Article... Oh, Mr. Gito, please identify yourself for the record and I guess step forward and find a microphone.
We have an extra one over here.
Oh, Cynthia has one.
Lou Gito, 1261 West Street, Stoughton, member of the Board of Selectmen. In September of 2022, I raised the issue of this department having a financial problem. I understand that that people within the town need to have health care. The health care system in this country has changed substantially since the VNA was formed, sometime around the late 1880s or 90s, perhaps 1910. I'm not exactly sure. As was mentioned, There are very few models like ours in the state. Last year, I sent something to you very late indicating that we should deal differently with this function. I again this year have done the same thing and mentioned it at the Board of Selectmen's meetings. Some of us old people know the people who provide service to us, especially if we are connected in some way with the town. When I was a child, there were about 5,000 people in the town. There are about 30,000 now, and most of them do not know the people who provide them medical care or other care, and quite frankly, are used to having people who are professionals and able provide that care to them. We are thinking of subsidizing a program again this year to provide service. At the same time, as I think I mentioned, well, I know I mentioned in the letter that I sent to your board, your committee, Brockton has this service and provides this service to people in our area. There are walk-in clinics that provide this service. We know that the people who come to the service don't fill up the town of Stoughton parking lot. And the people who provide service do that and get paid through Medicare and whatever other services they have. And they get good service. I don't know what plan is being proposed for this year. When I wrote this, I didn't know that there was a plan, and apparently there wasn't one until yesterday afternoon, if I'm not mistaken. If that's what I think what I heard. I don't think we should be asking our taxpayers to fund a program that is being paid for through Medicaid, Medicare. I think that we should not be trying to compete with the private sector for this kind of service. There are opportunities for the people who do this within our town to go to Brockton or go and work at other places. I mean, the healthcare industry is begging for people to come and work for them. So we're not going to be putting people out of work. We'll be having people work in a different environment. I think I said all of that in this little note that I sent to you. I think that's enough for me to say right now.
All right, thank you very much for that. Any other questions, comments from the public? Town budget, public health, FY26, Article 7, Public Health Association Enterprise Fund budget. Yes, please step forward and identify yourself for the record.
Thank you very much. Marina Ryans, 72 Copperwood. I just have a question. Unfortunately, previous administration let us all down providing free medicine, free medical care for illegals that we now live in this town and fully occupied the two hotels. So do you think that, our seniors, veterans suffer from it because we don't have enough money in the budget in this town? And I wonder when, this is going to end. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Any other questions, comments from the public? Article 7, Public Health Association Enterprise Fund Budget FY26. Hearing none. Okay. Lauren, do you have a question? We're gonna wrap this up in the committee, though, because we have other stuff we want to get to.
So say the town meeting legislator passes your budget, and then we adopt the MIH for the future budget. From what I understand, the VNA will still give services but won't be responsible for as much money because the MIH will be in place and the hospitals will bill Medicare and everything, not us. Is that right?
Factually, you're correct. We're going to be going through the rest of this fiscal year as budgeted right now, which is what's in front of you right now. And our strategy before today that we're considering was to just reduce cost. Right. So we got a $160,000 grant that we can hire two per diem people. The grant will cover 100% of their expense. So we're going to be able to do some revenue without having any expense. So it's going to change the profile immediately. But that's for 1 year. So we need a different plan for next year. And perhaps I was out of order introducing next year's plan. This coming year, this plan we're budgeting for right now, it's all about reducing cost and slowly integrating a new strategy into this VNA while still maintaining the same nursing services to the citizens of Stoughton.
Very last question, I promise. Chief Carroll, just a quick question. Through the MIH.
We don't want to get really too far down
this
to
is going to be a quick question. This is going to be quick. So through the MIH, you would bill MIH for ambulance services?
No, it's really too premature. No, we would
that's
continue.
How I understand
we would
MIH
continue to bill as we bill now for ambulance. The ambulance service will be set apart, ideally billing-wise, from the MIH.
Because I used to work with MIH at where I work out of Atrius, and it doesn't get billed to the patient, the ambulance services. It's through the hospital. Yeah, it's because they're
we
together.
bill insurance companies.
Right now.
We do that now. Yeah, we're not trying to mix the two. What we're trying to do is kind of layer over the public health, and I think it opens up more doors for the community. But it's really premature for me to really get into a business model. This year will be the year that we build it.
We're at day one of that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Just going to remind the committee, we're going to try to stay on this year's budget and not talk about next year or next century or anything. We're just trying to try to stay on track here. Lisa, do you have a question?
Okay, to talk about things in this century. I just want this presenter to know, as well as every presenter that comes before the Finance Committee, we appreciate all the work you do. I want you to know that. And it's very difficult for us as finance, or for myself as a Finance Committee member, to bring up hard topics. But it's just understand, please don't take it personal. It's all with regard to take care of our taxpayers and to reduce debt exclusions and overrides. So if we can all come from it at that perspective, that would be great.
All right, thank you very much for that. We're going to move on to the next one. We've already asked for the public on this one here. We've heard from several people. Any other questions, comments from the public? Article 7, Public Health Association Enterprise Fund Budget, FY26. Hearing none. Next item on the agenda we have Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget, FY26, Library page 64. Do we have someone to present? Thank you very much for the presentation. Have a wonderful evening. Whenever you're ready.
Hi, I'm Chris McGee. I'm the director of the library. So our budget is fairly straightforward. The bulk of it is salaries. We see about 400 people a day at the library, and almost all of the library staff serve the public directly. The remainder of the items, we were just sort of cleaning up some things, trying to stay with historical usage as well as looking at future needs. So everything is footnoted in your budget, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the footnotes on here. Any questions, comments from the committee? Article 14, General Fund. Dave? Oh, Chet. You're raising. Chet, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the presenter. This budget here, does this coincide with Article 12 about the library contract? Is this included in this?
It's in.
20.
If I may, Mr. Chair, the negotiated contract is within the HR budget under contract settlements. So when we were preparing the budgets, we didn't have all the information. So it's in a holding line in HR. Once we get the information from Mr. McGee, we'll be transferring it out after town meeting.
Okay, well, my question is, under part-time wages, it's 14.7%. And what I read on, it's like a 10% raise or 10% to the hourly wages. But my point is this, why do we have 14.7? I guess that's the question.
The reason that you have 14.7 is during 2024, you had a mid-year increase. Was it 2024? Mid-year increase that had come into play. And then the, what did you say?
They were brought up to minimum wage.
Yeah, and then they were brought up to minimum wage. They were brought up to a more workable wage than what they've been making in the past for part-timers.
Okay, and that's the aides and pages, right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So when we get to HR on this contract, that'll reflect this. That's my question. So it's already encumbered into this budget here?
In the HR budget that you have in front of you.
They're not in the union.
No.
Oh, the pages, they aren't in the
No,
union. They are. They are in the union.
They're in this budget here. Is that
Not
correct?
in the library budget, but you will see it under human resources, and you will see, I believe it's contract negotiations or settlements in the HR budget. That's where you will see, I believe it's $90,000, which covers 3 different contracts that we have settled after this was completed.
So I may be confused or, no, I understand, but that's what I'm trying to figure out in my own mind because I'm like, I'm a Marine, so, it's like, it's hard to, I guess my point is, the 14.7, is that separate from the new contract? I guess that's my question.
Yes, so if you were to look back at the last several years, that budget line has not been increased for 3 years. And as the finance director mentioned, in 2024, they did receive a mid-year increase because they did not receive it at the beginning of the fiscal year. So the budget had to go up in the budget that you have before you in order to meet those previous obligations. That does not count for the new contract, which will be under the HR budget that you will see in a later article.
Okay.
You good, Chet?
Well, I got more questions when the HR comes up.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Dave, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Vaughn, through you. I have the same line item that I had questions on, but I think in general, I just want to make sure, like, for all the different budgets, I understand that when I'm looking at the percentage change, I get a different result because I think I'm doing math on a different column than maybe that was created from, because like 14.7, it looks like it's being correlated back to the actual column. Is that what you're using? Are you using the actuals when you create the percentage change? So it went from 152.7 to 195 and then 14.7, or was it, are you using the approved town meeting appropriation to generate the percentage change?
I'd be more than happy to give you that information tomorrow if you'd like, but it should be off of the select board vote of 195 versus the 170 that was approved at town meeting. It's not based on the actuals from 2024.
Oh, okay, so it's, okay, so the number might be different.
170 adding 14.7% equals about 195.
Okay, so that is the column you're using. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm using the same. Okay. So I also had the same question Chet did, so I don't have to repeat that question. So I'm good. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any other questions, comments from the committee? Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget, FY26 for the library. Hearing none. Questions or comments from the public? Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget, library. Hearing none. Next item on the agenda, we have Article 14, Veteran Services, part of General Fund Operating Budget for FY26. Thank you very much for the presentation. Have a wonderful evening. The library is just a wonderful place to be. And I've heard the coffee's excellent, too. Page 61.
Let's move this over here for a moment. Thank you so much.
I think Sharon has an appropriate introduction, so I'm good.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I'm Sharon Johnson in Veteran Services. This is hopefully very brief. We've had a lot of changes in the way we process both state and federal benefits for our veterans, and I think this will summarize some of the items in the budget. There's basically two pieces, state and federal. And on the state side, they've implemented some changes to the certifications of veteran service officers. In order for a veteran service officer to be able to process federal claims, they must work a minimum of 1,000 hours per year and take a yearly certification test to become accredited. Our budget shows an increase for the veterans agent of 8.4%, which reflects an increase from 988 hours a year to 1,014 hours a year, and the COLA increase, that's the combined increase. On the federal side, the Department of Veterans Affairs has mandated that all veteran service officers are either cross-accredited with Veterans Affairs, either through the state or become nationally accredited. Both Brian, our part-time veterans officer, and myself have both taken the state and federal exams and have become nationally accredited with Veterans Affairs as National Service Officers. We've also cross-accredited with the state. The state has mandated annual training and the usage of the Tyler system, which is a brand-new system, which is a secure program to help file these claims. And we can track and communicate and follow up on these claims through this program. The cost of the conferences, training, system licenses, that's all included in these conference and subscription lines. But overall, the budget only has an increase of 1.1. And let's see, there was a decrease in the line item that says veterans benefits. This particular line item is for the state benefits paid through Chapter 115. This is for low-income veterans or families, and unfortunately, it's been on a steady decline over the years. And this is not, we're not taking away from them, it's just the fact that this population of veterans is, they're going into nursing homes, they're unfortunately passing. Or another reason is we're able to get them onto federal benefits now because of the two acts that were passed, the PACT Act and the HERO Act. They've added more presumptive conditions, which means more veterans and families are able to get additional benefits, which puts them above the income limit for Chapter 115. So we're able to move them off state benefits and local and onto federal. So it benefits everybody. Let's see. Just as a point of information, Chapter 115 benefits are paid by the town, and they're reimbursed by the state, 75%. Flags and burials are reimbursed at 100%. So it's difficult when you look at the budget. We do get reimbursed for a chunk of that, but it comes a year later. So, and what I did hand out, that's the last thing I wanted to mention, the pretty colored Excel spreadsheet. It's something we recently got from the state. They provided us with basically by county, by zip code for the entire state, how much is paid out in federal veterans benefits. This does not include the state benefits that are paid locally. So it's a great point of information. Stoughton ranks number 3 out of 45 zip codes in Norfolk County. So in the state, Stoughton ranks 27th out of 622. So this is we pay out, I think it's 800 and something thousand, 829,766 that are paid to veterans in Massachusetts in this town. So just wanted to make that point. Thank you for allowing me the time to summarize, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation. Do we have any questions? Dave, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Vaughn, through you. Yeah, I wanted to, I like this spreadsheet because you know what it also highlights? If you look at the payout per beneficiary, it actually moves us, it looks like to me that it would be, I don't know, I mean, I didn't go too far down the list, but pretty high up there in terms of payout per, better than the two towns ahead of us, Quincy and Braintree. So we're paying out pretty good, it looks like, you know, when you look at the number of people who are getting the benefit, right?
The average veteran receiving benefits in the town of Stoughton is $1,980.
Yeah, and that's terrific. I think the only item was the 8%, and I think it was just confusing. You changed the hours. Can you tell me what the first number was, that their existing hours are, and then it's going to 1,000? You mentioned 900 something to 1,000, I think.
Yeah, he worked 19 hours a week, and we moved him to 19 and a half. That's the difference in the hours. Yeah, because we were required by the state.
Okay, because of state, okay. And that reaches 1,000 hours, what, per?
It actually comes out to
1,100, what is that?
1,100. Oh, I had that. It's 1,014 hours per year.
1,014 hours. Yeah. Got it. Okay, and that's all I had, thank you.
All right, thank you, Dave. Carolyn, you have a question on this?
Hi, thank you. I just have a quick question. You spoke about two acts that helped. Could you just repeat them? Because I didn't get the first one. I was trying to write it down.
The HERO Act and the PACT Act.
The PACT?
PACT, P-A-C-T.
Okay, any other questions, comments from the committee? Heidi.
Hi. On the summit flags and grave decorations, I see that the budget went up, and I'm wondering, with Girl Scouts, I do the flagging with the troops, and I've noticed that a lot of the, I don't know what they're called, the emblems that you put the markers that you put the flags in, a lot of those are broken or partially work. Is that part of that budget, or is that just for headstones?
It is part of the budget, those metal markers that hold the flags. We did allow room in the budget to replace a lot of those. I do know that a lot of the old ones are just bent. They get hit by lawnmowers, but that is part of that whole line item, the flags, grave decorations. It's wreaths, it's flags, it's the carnations that go on the street signs, the memorial squares. So there's a lot involved in that line item, but those are definitely in there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you very much for that. Any other questions or comments from the committee on Veteran Services, part of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget? Hearing none. Any questions, comments from the public? Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget, Veteran Services. Cynthia, please identify yourself for the record.
Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street. For those members that don't know, Massachusetts is the only state in the Union that requires every community to have a veterans agent. And I don't think we understand how valuable that is. Otherwise, veterans are on their own. There's a veteran in my family that can no longer speak, breathes through a trach, and is on a liquid diet and still living. These folks have severe, not just age, but severe injuries related to their service to our nation. And I think it's a credit to this state and our town that they get the services they need and that they're not in California in a tent by the side of the road.
Thank you very much for that, Cynthia. Any other questions, comments from the public? Veteran Services, part of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget. Hearing none. Jonna, do you have a question on this?
Just a quick comment. Thank you, Vaughn. Riding on what Cynthia said, I just feel the same way. We really should take care of the vets because we haven't been doing that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, any other questions, comments? Public, Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget, Veteran Services. Hearing none. Next item on the agenda, we have Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget, Recreation, page 67.
Good. Matt Koshan, Director of Recreation Youth Services. Before each night, you will have our budget, which is a reduction in cost. I believe the total is negative 4.4%. I will like to say this is absolutely not a reduction in services. Over the past year, we actually have a 10% program participant increase. We have multiple projects that are going to be improving parks and athletic fields in the design and construction phase. We have some collaborations with the school department coming out soon. And our youth commission has been doing a fabulous job at keeping their wait list of clients to 0 throughout the year, but also having a full wait list and providing multiple programs for families and the youth as well. So our department is at a very good stage. I believe we are have some cool opportunities in front of us. Last but not least, I just want to give a shout out to my partner in crime, Molly Reed, who left us this past Thursday to take an opportunity close to her home. Very excited for her, very proud of her. I give her a lot of thanks. She helped elevate this department to another level, and I couldn't have done it without her. So that is all I got.
Thank you for that. Questions or comments from the committee on the recreation budget, part of Article 14? Chet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To you, the petitioner, is Molly's salary reflected in this, or is it going to be deducted?
Correct.
Or are we looking to hire somebody else?
Correct. So we're the job's posted, and we are looking to hire someone else.
Okay, so it'll still be in this budget, but not maybe that amount of money. Maybe a decrease?
Correct. It's at a lower rate than what
Okay.
she would have been paid.
And I will miss Molly.
I will too.
Thank you for that, Chet. Any other questions, comments from the committee? Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget, Recreation. Hearing none. Questions, comments from the public Recreation, part of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget. Hearing none, next item on the agenda, we will go to Article 14, Community Events, also part of General Fund Operating Budget. Page 71.
All right, so community events, you'll see an increase of 3.5%, and that will be because of an increase in cost of fireworks. The fireworks will be on Tuesday, July 1st, with a rain day of July 2nd this year. And that is all I got, and open to any questions.
Any questions from the committee on community events? Jonna?
Thank you, Vaughn. I just was curious if IKEA has any input in giving us any monies for the fireworks like they have in the past, or is that a done deal?
So IKEA does not do any monetary donations anymore. So they do donate us staff for events, community events and stuff like that, but they don't do monetary donations.
Okay, any other, Dave, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Vaughn, through you. Thank you very much, Matt. Appreciate everything you do for the town. And I think one of the questions I have is I think this is the first budget that we get to the 300th anniversary, if I'm not mistaken, right? This budget? Not this particular budget, I mean this budget season in general. 2026, FY26 begins the 300th, right? Does anything you do in your department get involved in at all with the 300th?
Yeah, so we have multiple things that we're planning, small things, but we're working with the 300th committee. We actually have a meeting on Friday. It's going to be a really cool event, so I don't want to say anything yet because it's not.
You're not going to give us a spoiler alert? No spoiler alerts on?
It's going to be really cool.
Okay, all right.
Very cool.
I appreciate that. So I was wondering, and I don't know where in this to even bring this up other than the fact that I'm curious about the railroad depot, to see whether or not you're planning to use the depot in FY26 because of the 300th, or is that not going to be ready to be able to do that?
Yeah, it'll be through like the 300th committee. Would probably be better to answer that question than me.
All right. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that. Any other questions, comments from the committee? Community events. Lisa, you have a question?
I just have a question on I guess it would be the COLA situation. I saw in the budget, the contracts were negotiated at 3%, 3%, and 3% over the next 3 years.
What line? What?
It's in the overall budget.
We're on the community events part of the budget here. I'm aware of that.
Vaughn.
I'm just trying to clarify what line we're on, but thank you, Dave.
It's a general question.
Oh, okay, okay. I didn't know it was a line. I just thought I'd ask.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the COLAs are different for every body, for all the 6 unions. The 3% was for non-union employees, people that weren't otherwise covered under contract, a 3% COLA.
And then, so are the different departments, the unions, done at different rates?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's whatever they negotiate.
Okay.
All right, thank you for that. Any other questions, comments from the committee on community events? Part of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget. Hearing none. Questions or comments from the public? Community events. Cynthia, please identify yourself for the record.
Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street, Stoughton. I wanted to say that Matt is an invaluable assistant to the 300th Anniversary Committee. And in 2026, we're going to expect a lot from him. As to a previous speaker, we have no control over when a building is completed and available to the public. I mean, if it's available to the public and it's completed, including the handicap bathrooms, obviously it would be useful. But the committee has no control over that.
All right, thank you for that. Any other questions, comments from the public? Community events, Part of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget. Hearing none. Next item on the agenda, we have Council on Aging, page 59. This is also part of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget.
That helps. Good evening, Finance Committee members. I'm Janice Bruce, the Director of the Stoughton Council on Aging. As you look at our COA FY26 budget, you'll see that it reflects a 5.2% increase. That's mostly due to salaries, and I can explain where that salary increase came from. First, I want to mention that my salary under the directors was an error from last year. It didn't calculate my increase, so even though I was getting it, it just made up for it this year as over 5%, but it was not really 5%. So that was the first thing I want to point out. Second, we have now increased the hours of the outreach social worker position. This was a part-time position and now is a full-time position at 35 hours. So you will see an increased amount in that line. And we decided to go for a full-time outreach person because the demands at the Council on Aging have only increased. We are getting, this community has grown in its senior population. By the last census, I think it were like 8,500 seniors of 60 and older. So we're definitely getting more demands at the Council on Aging. And we need somebody, an outreach worker, that can do SHINE counseling and do any of the insurance forms or go make a visit to a senior that may need some assistance. So that's why that position got increased. And third, one of the positions which was split between the youth services and the COA is now accounted for fully in the COA budget. It's not any more hours, it's just that we're not splitting it on, she still does do youth commission work, but she's accounted for fully in the COA budget. And you may have noticed that the part-time driver's line was zeroed out. That's because it is now grant funded. And that's basically the changes. And be happy to take any questions. Yes, Lisa?
Well, thank you very much for the presentation.
The chair. Oh, sorry.
Lisa, you have a question?
Hi, I just want to know, you may have said it, I may have missed it. Where did the grant come from?
Oh, every year we get a grant from the state, and we've been getting it for a very long time. It's called the Formula Grant, and it is based on calculations off of census numbers. And the 2020 U.S. Census showed that we had increased by, I think, like 1,000 seniors. So we got an increase in our funding. So it was like 97,000 last year, and we just got the grant. It's now 110,000.
I'm just glad to hear at least one state subsidy hasn't been pulled out from under the towns like many of them have, leaving the taxpayers to bear the burden. Thank you.
All right, any other questions, comments from the committee? Carolyn?
Hi, thank you. I guess I have a question. I'm just not sure. The administrative director, it says it's 0.4 FTEs on this?
Oh, I work part-time. I'm not a full-time employee.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's.
All right, thank you. Dave, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Vaughn. Do you, thank you very much. I appreciate the presentation. So I understand that there was an under-budgeted number. So where did the number come from? Did it come from a different line in the budget to make up the off number?
If I may, Mr. Chair, to the members of the Finance Committee and the public, When the budgets were done last year, some of the 2.5% COLAs weren't calculated into the individual lines. However, it was in the bottom line budgeting. So that's why you see that she would have a 5.6% increase, where actually it was probably more of a 3% increase, not a 5.6, because 2.5 came from the prior year.
So it came from inside the same budget from a different, from a bottom line number?
Absolutely,
left
bottom
for-
line salary,
There was
correct.
enough available to cover.
Absolutely, and you'll see that on a couple of other budgets as we go forward as well. It was just
Okay.
seemed to have been a chronic issue, so it is covered through bottom line.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Biz was new at the
I didn't do the budget. I just had to sit here.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on that one, but thank you.
All right, thank you, Dave. Chet, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To presenter, first of all, we did have a retirement at the Council on Aging, and I know the salary's in this budget. And again, it's going to be like I asked for the recreation. That's going to stay in the budget, and hopefully we find another person to fill that position, maybe, hopefully, a lower pay. The other thing that I really kind of disappointed in a little bit, because I do go to Council on Aging, is the senior activities. That's, to me, that's kind of low. I know that we have limited space at the council for a lot of dinners and activities that we do, but and some of them do cost, and I think that since we're so, well, we want to help our seniors out any way we can. I would like to, I know it's not possible, but maybe it is, I don't know, to increase that from 7,500 to a higher amount, just to offset some of the costs for the seniors.
Right. We do have a budget line item in the formula grant also for activities, so we do utilize that line as well.
I heard about that, but I was never really confirmed that. I was never told that that was part of it. That's all.
Okay.
But there is, okay. Thank you. But still increase it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Chet. Any other questions or comments from the committee on the Council on Aging budget, part of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget? Hearing none. Questions or comments from the public? Cynthia, please identify yourself for the record.
Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street, Senior. I got a phone call today because I was planning to take the senior bus to one of the tax chats about how seniors could reduce their taxes. And I got a call that there's no ride because that's the day they deliver the groceries to the seniors that are in tougher shape than I am. And I appreciate that our Council on Aging delivers food to people that are homebound. I'm not homebound. I went to Shaw's today. But it really gets my Irish up. I mean, I campaigned for this part-time driver for a couple of years, but we really need another full-time driver. That's not the only time that I've been told there's no room on the bus or there's no way to get you to where you want to go. That's called, I mean, the whole idea is to serve seniors, and we're not doing enough. There are more seniors in Stoughton than there are children, yet look at the portion of the budget we get. Less than 0.5% of $130 million. And for some of you that don't know this, the minimum cab ride in Stoughton now is $30. If one of you doesn't give me a ride home from the meeting, it costs me $30 to go 2 1/10 miles without a tip. And believe me, there is no tip. The drivers are very pleasant. They walk me to the door, but I don't think people realize I know you realize the price of groceries, and I know we're delivering groceries to folks from the food pantries, and there's food available at the Y. I mean, for a town of 30,000, we actually have 3 food pantries. I mean, that tells you the level of income of folks in Stoughton. It isn't just seniors that have to get food. There's plenty of kids. But I think that asking seniors, who make up nearly 25% of the population now of the town, to get by with less, it's not even $500,000. I mean, and then in a previous argument, we were talking about another service that seniors use that's costing the town too much money. I really resent that. My family's been paying taxes in Stoughton since 1948. And now when we need the help, it's, you're too expensive, stay home, watch TV, or better yet, die. Well, I'm going to be here next year too, making the same arguments.
Well, thank you very much for that, Cynthia. I will fully expect to hear the same arguments next year. Ian, you have a question on this?
I do have a question. I see 2 line items for vehicle maintenance, and I know that actually at a previous meeting, there's something came up about the Recreation Department was borrowing one of the COA vehicles and talked about why they needed to buy a new vehicle. So just wanted to call out, I don't see anything funded for vehicle maintenance. So what would be your approach if you need to do any vehicle repairs?
So our, we rent, well, not rent, whatever, through BAT. So we get most of our vehicles through BAT under a lease agreement, and they cover the, well, we do cover some of those if something goes wrong, but they're leased vehicles. We own one vehicle. That's the one that Rec has borrowed, and that's actually part of the fleet under fleet management. DPW. So that would be in their budget.
The maintenance.
The maintenance.
All right, thank you for that. Any other questions, comments from the public? Council on Aging, part of Article 14, General Fund. Please step forward and identify yourself for the record.
Thank you. Marina Ryans, 72 Copperwood. So it's not new that, unfortunately, for the last 4 years, we've inherited inflation. And we all struggle. And I wanted to ask town to be aware when they think about increasing the salaries to bear in mind that taxpayers have no capacity to cover a lot of increases of salaries. We simply don't have any money. So we struggle enough, and until we see the prices go down, I'll say salary increases, no. And I wanted also to say that a lot of companies today put bonuses and salary increases on hold. So until we see the prices go down, and that goes to property taxes, water, basic, groceries, and everything else, we simply don't have free money left. So especially seniors, I think they suffer the most vulnerable population in this town. So when we go with any salaries increases or any expenses increase, any capital project, any tax override, we have to think about, seniors, veterans, and families who struggle, and we don't want to cause them problems, force them out of their homes, and, other issues, bankruptcy, homelessness, hunger. I just wanted to bring this up. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that. Any other questions, comments from the public? Council on Aging, part of the Article 14 General Fund operating budget. Mr. Anzavino, please identify yourself for the record.
John Anzavino, 25 Ross Ave. I'm a little confused because I didn't really understand now what you had said with the driver. You zeroed out the part-time driver, but you still only have 3 full-time drivers, same as last year. And I know sitting on this committee a couple of years ago, I advocated for getting a 4th full-time driver in there, because I think the vehicles are there. And after hearing a previous speaker talk about not being able to get a ride because it was in use and you couldn't do it, could you explain that? Did I mishear you? But you got rid of the part-time driver, but there was no increase in the full-time?
No, so last year, we had 2 full-time drivers, and we put on a 3rd full-time driver. So we do have a 3rd full-time driver. And we probably had 5 part-time drivers in a pool, a per diem. Some of them retired. So we do have a part-time per diem driver that we can utilize when we need to. I will say about the rides, our rides are slammed. We do recommend people not schedule at the last minute. You might get denied. We recommend people to call as soon as they find out they're going to need a ride, because as Ms. Walsh did comment, we do a lot of food pantry deliveries on certain days. Some of the buses are tied up with medical appointments. Always take priority over anything else. Those come first. But there are times when people just, unfortunately, unless they've called, if we can fit somebody in, we most certainly will do it. And I'm sorry, if somebody did not get a ride when they had called, but to call like sometimes even the day before, if it's totally booked, we may even have the part-time driver already booked as well. But you're taking people sometimes all the way over to Brockton Hospital and back, and then we do all into other towns. So it is kind of a jigsaw trying to fit everybody in. But if you call ahead of time, you're most likely going to get scheduled in for a ride.
Understand. So where is this per diem driver accounted for? Because the part-time drivers is zeroed out.
So
And the FY25 said there were 3 full-time drivers.
So we had some that retired, and we have a per diem driver that's now out of the grant, which we're not showing in our budget.
Okay. How many vehicles are available to you?
We have one that we run, and then we have 4, but they're not always in service. Sometimes they're at bat. So on a good day, we could have 5 running.
Well, I think this really needs to be looked at. I've been talking about it for years myself. There should be 4 full-time drivers. If you have 5 vehicles, you should be able to have at least 4 of them out all the time. If you need a per diem driver and you have a 5th vehicle to use it, I believe this service should be offered, and it should be offered as best as it could be. And I think if the vehicles are there, the driver should be hired to do it. Just my opinion. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that. Dave?
Yeah, thank you for recognizing me, Vaughn. He basically got my, wheels spinning a little on the question of the drivers. So is it the formula state grant that you're talking about for the per diem source? That would be the source? 'Cause I want to make sure I could even talk about grant money. I'm not sure if that's in my purview, but
Formula grant?
yeah, whether or not it's in my purview or not, I don't know. But I was trying to understand why you had a budget for it right here. It was appropriated, as part-time drivers, it was appropriated last year, and it's showing where there's nothing appropriated this year, and I think that's where the confusion came in, is that it went from 22,217 appropriated, only 9,240 used, and then there's 0 available from the FY26 budget. So is the state grants making up some portion of that? I would think that's where you're going with this, is that you don't need the money from the budget because of the grant?
Well, we had some positions in the grant, and one person left, and then one person went to part-time, so we had extra money, so I wanted to utilize that grant money for salaries. So I felt like that was the most logical person to put into the grant was the per diem.
All right, thank you for that.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments from the public? Council on Aging, part of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget. Hearing none. Next item on the agenda, we have Commission on Disabilities, which is on page 60, which is on page, thank you very much. Page 63, also part of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget.
Hi, Charlotte Mullen, Chair of the Disabilities Commission. Our budget amount is exactly the same as it was in the current year. We had gone before the Select Board a few years ago and requested some funds which would allow us to create things like brochures, place ads in the Suburban Shopper, and we've certainly become much more active in the last year, and going forward into next year, we'll be working very closely with the town on some of the things that were highlighted in a recent report that need attention in regards to disability access.
All right, thank you very much for the presentation. Any questions from the committee on the Commission on Disabilities, part of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget? Hearing none, questions or comments from the public on the Commission on Disabilities budget, part of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget. Cynthia, please identify yourself for the record.
Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street, disabled senior. I have to praise the chair whenever I've expressed a concern about accessibility. She's usually reached out and contacted me, in fact. It just takes so long. By the time they fix things, I probably won't be here anymore. But we need to have the Commission on Disabilities. They have to have some funding so that they can continue their work. I mean, 15% of the population is disabled, and they're not all seniors. And some of the accessibility items actually help other people. I mean, the ramps, if you are a mom pushing a stroller, the ramps are certainly going to come in handier than the stairs are. So I don't want to call it disability accessibility anymore. I want to call it universal accessibility. It means that everybody, no matter what stage of life they're at, can get into a building and use a building. And it bothers me that some places just stick a ramp up the front, and then you get inside a building and discover that the bathrooms, for instance, aren't accessible. I mean, they are in this building. But there's so much work that needs to be done, and I'm glad that Ms. Mullen is willing to do that for all of us.
Thank you very much for that. Any other questions, comments from the public on the Commission on Disabilities budget, part of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget? Hearing none. Next item on the agenda, Substance Abuse Prevention Budget, which is on page 62. Thank you very much for the presentation. Substance Abuse Prevention, page 62, also part of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Chief McNamara for the prevention budget. Most of you on the committee will know that I took over supervision of the prevention budget last year. There's not much to the change, 2.2% in the budget. If there are any questions?
Thank you very much for the presentation. Any questions from the committee on the Substance Abuse Prevention budget, part of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget, for FY26. Lisa?
Hi, could you just please describe what services this department is providing?
Sure, there are a number of things that are done, weekly podcasts for adolescents, as well as parents. We facilitate grandparents raising grandchildren support system with the assistance in working with other community partners with the YMCA as well. We also partner with the schools. Many of the clientele that we're looking to reach are not just the youth and adolescents in the school system, but they get out of school at 3 o'clock, and then the town is dealing with the kids that are on free time. So idle hands, they kind of get in trouble sometimes. So there are multiple partnerships that we utilize, and that is even with the school system as well as the YMCA. The library is, Christopher deals with them quite often, starting after 2:30 in the afternoon, and there are a lot of programs that we run. We do some vaping programs as well, workshops for parents. We are constantly working with our own SRO to provide Hidden in Plain Sight, which is education to parents at different parent conference nights, what to be looking for in bedrooms for things that are hidden in their child's bedroom, and that is contraband, whether it's vaping products or it's drugs or alcohol. And that is a lot of the education that we're doing in the prevention program.
And there's one person for almost $88,000 running that?
Yes, we also have a couple grants out there that person oversees as well, that has part-time. They're not employees of the town, but they're funded through the grant. So it's AmeriCorps grant, and there's a fellowship utilizing Northeastern students as well. You're welcome.
Thank you very much for that. Any other questions or comments from the committee on these? Carolyn?
I just have a quick question. Is the person still the same person that's been doing it?
Yes, Stephanie Patton.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the committee on the substance abuse prevention budget, part of the Article 14 General Fund operating budget? Hearing none, questions or comments from the public. Substance abuse prevention budget, part of Article 14. Cynthia, please identify yourself for the record.
Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street. I think that unless you're involved, you really don't know the kinds of work that this group is doing. But it's very important. This is not Mayberry. We have the same kinds of problems in Stoughton that happen across Massachusetts and across the nation. And it's extremely important to get to the kids when they're young. And it isn't just high school. I'm sure you work with middle school kids. The entry level now for some drugs is 11. That isn't even middle school for some kids. That's still elementary school. But they start with things like alcohol and cough syrup, and then they work their way up, unless there's some sort of intervention. And parents don't want to be in a silo. They don't want to be alone. They need to know that there's resources, and that there are other parents. It's not a dirty little secret that this is a problem that we could work together to solve. And it's really important for the kids to know we're there and for the grown-ups. And I also heard the previous speaker mention grandparents raising children, grandchildren. I don't think we know how common this is. There's a whole middle generation that's gone, many because of HIV and many because of overdoses. and that leaves their parents to take care of their children's children. And if you think it's hard being a parent, imagine being a parent when you're 60 or 70 or even 80. So I think this group deserves a lot of praise, and we need to let the community know more about what's happening for those folks that don't know yet that help's available. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Any other questions or comments from the public? Substance abuse prevention budget. Please step forward and identify yourself for the record.
Thank you very much. Marina Ryans, 72 Copperwood. Do you educate schoolers how drugs, especially fentanyl, are harmful to their health and cognitive development? How you do that and how often?
So our prevention coordinator works with the schools through educating them in a variety of different ways. So it's working in partnership with the school system for the education.
In schools and presenting, like,
yes,
the harm.
everything that we do has to be approved by the schools because it is in their setting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you for that. Any other questions, comments from the public? Substance abuse prevention, part of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget. Hearing none, we'll go to the next item on the agenda. We have Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget, Public Safety Police. Page 33.
Okay, thank you. Police budget, I'd just like to make a couple announcements. Since last year's Finance Committee, to educate some of the members of the committee, some of the changes that have taken place in our department. One of the biggest changes has been through the town meeting approval was leaving civil service. There are numerous positives to us leaving civil service that I'd like to report on. For your knowledge, we have been able to recruit some extremely highly professional, educated, highly honorable individuals with the recruitment process that we've been doing since town meeting and we left civil service. We have a number of officers, training officers that are in the academy. We have 4 in the academy right now, another one going in next month. We have recruited a number of veteran police officers from other communities that we do not have to send to the academy for training. That's just to mention some of the positives. Some of the concerns and negatives that we have to be cautious of and is our ability to stay competitive in the industry. Many towns have left civil service, so we are competing with many communities in the Commonwealth. And what are the number one things that people are looking for when they look for a new job? They're looking for compensation, number one. And we are very competitive and have been, and we've been able to recruit some highly educated people that are interested in becoming police officers in the town of Stoughton, and that recruitment continues at this point, and we are still ongoing in filling some of our vacancies. In addition, we've had some organizational changes. We have two deputy chiefs, and we have made a number of promotions to the rank of lieutenant and sergeant as well, and we are working towards solidifying all those hires that we have vacancies for and moving our department forward. And those are just some of the improvements and things that we've done since we last met a year ago.
All right, thank you very much for that presentation. Any questions from the committee on the police budget, part of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget? Arnie?
Good evening. Thank you for being here. Just got a question for you. As I remember from town meeting last year, we were replacing cruisers at 3 per year, and this year you're adding an extra 3 cruisers and 1 unmarked. Is that?
Arnie, I'm going to stop you there because we're going to have an article for that, and we'll cover that there.
Will do.
All right, thank you. Did you have any other questions on the budget, Arnie? Okay, thank you. Chet, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. to the chief. Could you please rationalize why we have 2 deputy chiefs? I know one's for admin, one's for operations. What was the rationale of doing that? With obviously the increase in pay, the stipends, and all that stuff are encumbered in with their salaries. But what is the reason behind that? Because, I mean, our budgets are going out of style, increasing salaries, everything else, all over town, all over the departments, rather. So I mean, you got 10 sergeants, you got 4 lieutenants. Didn't we have captains before?
There has not been a captain funded since 1992.
Okay, we did have them.
We did have it,
Yeah,
1992.
So we
Retired.
So we had one deputy chief that did operations and admin?
Correct.
Okay, so now we have 2 doing one person's job. So what is the reason behind that?
The increase in duties and responsibilities for the position became overwhelming for one individual. The needs were provided to the town manager and the need for the secondary position. It was presented at previous finance committee meetings, previous select board, and it was funded last year.
I understand what's funded, but I still don't understand why we have to have 2. That's all. When one person's doing the job.
It's for the proper function of the police department and the operation of the police department. It's necessary.
May I have that, please? Mr. Chairman, I'd love to add to that answer if possible.
Excuse me.
Oh, excuse me. Oh, I was just...
You want to comment on that part?
On that part,
Okay,
yes.
please.
Oh, I wouldn't change, sorry, Chet. I was the one that recommended we do a second deputy. I don't think it's, I know it's not new news that the department over the last decade has had serious problems. And the problems resulted from there not being enough oversight and supervisory at the very senior level. We'll be dealing with those problems and those front-page news stories for decades to come. We also had multiple lawsuits, some of it coming from our own command staff. We had dozens of grievances that cost tens of thousands of dollars. Ever since the reorganization, we haven't had a single grievance or a single lawsuit, or, thank goodness, any of those major incidents that we're dealing with right now. We also added several new responsibilities. For instance, now our police officers wear cameras, and that needed to be administered pursuant to the law. That couldn't be just another duty that was added on to the existing chief. The deputy we had, as we all know, is an extraordinary police officer, extraordinary leader. But he would be the first to tell you that when he was forced to do the internal investigation on the Birchmore case, that he couldn't do anything else. He worked on that for close to a year. And that's where a lot of problems were created. So it's a big organization. It's a complex organization. Having a son who's a police officer, I can tell you they're not easy to manage. They're all alpha males and strong women. And you need a strong command staff in order to keep the house in order. So it just wasn't structured at the very top with enough meat, if you will, enough senior executive leadership authority. Now that we have that, I can tell you over the past 5 months, I am talking to them, the rank and file, the union leaders every day. The place has never functioned like it's functioning right now. So you're going to hear about other departments that had to add staff, and we're making money because we added staff. This is one where we're avoiding crises because we've added command staff. I certainly understand the question. I would have asked the question, but that's the reason. Thank you, Chet. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, I'm not against the 2 positions. I just wanted the rationale behind it. Okay, so nothing against...
So just to add clarify, one of the things that we're implementing in the next couple weeks is body-worn cameras. That entire program has been, the grant funding that was provided for us to purchase that, and the supervision of that program falls under one of the deputy chiefs. A massive portion of that job is going to be done, an oversight by a deputy chief. It's a big thing that's coming to our community.
Thank you. I understand it. The other question I have, I'm still on these percentages, okay? Program Administrator 2, it's got a 6.6% increase. Can you explain why? I don't have my, it says number 4. I don't have my other sheet that has the notes on it, so I apologize for that.
Oh, yeah, it's on page 36 if anyone's looking for this.
Well,
Yeah, I know.
I got all these, I don't have my other ones. I just took the ones out for tonight's agenda. Sorry, and I missed that sheet.
Mr. Chair, if I could answer that question from the
Absolutely.
member?
I tried to be organized.
This question relates back to the prior questions where it looked like people were getting large increases, but they actually weren't, because there was a COLA issue from the previous year budget, 2025. And bottom line budget from 2025 covers any of the expenses. So it's the same type of thing. And as I said earlier, you're going to see this repetitive in the next couple of nights on some of the budgets that are coming before you. So number 4 on the explanations is quite simply, if I can read it. Have you got it? Oh, yeah, here it is. FY25 salary adjustment, but not the scheduled COLA. So that's what the issue was with that, and we are finding that repetitive throughout the budgets, so.
So it was in the bottom line?
It's in the bottom line, correct, for 2025.
You good?
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you. Lisa?
Hi, so this is on page 34. I'll come back to the building repairs because that's the least of the increases. But the consultant fees that are at $45,000 with 36.4% increase, can you just, I'm just not aware of what type of consultant fees we're incurring.
Certainly. So we have a PR firm. We also are utilizing a software program that's going to assist us with public records, internal affairs, that's also going to come out of this line item. And we also utilize it when we are hiring an outside investigators. So it's a combination of a number of things.
Okay. And then the billing and collection admin service?
Yes.
That's gone from 6588 to 9840?
That is the detailed billing software program that we purchased. And again, we charge private contractors the details, a 10% admin fee each time we do a road job detail. And that program is sufficiently upgraded with the purchase of this new software so that we're actively collecting and we're not waiting sometimes 180 days to get some payments.
So is that software in this budget, that in the fiscal '26 budget, or did you already get it?
We purchased it already, and we're using it right now. It's a continuous fee each year.
So I'm just curious, so why is the fiscal 26 budget increasing?
Because it is a continuous fee. It's not a one-time purchase.
Oh, okay, it's like a annual fee?
Yes.
Okay. And then just contracted services, just so I know what they are year to year, so I'm not asking the same questions.
They change each year. I can't give you an answer. I can tell you what we've spent it on in the past, but each year it'll change for what the needs are for the department.
Can you give me an idea of what types of things would be contracted services?
Outside investigators?
So that falls under 2 different line items?
Sorry?
I'm sorry, that falls under 2 different line items?
Sometimes it does, depending on what we're hiring them for.
I'd like to point this out, that there's a footnote on this, contracted services, item 9. It's increased for public relations communications. Is that the line we're talking about?
Is that a
if that's what
different one?
Okay, we're just confirming this. Okay. Thank you.
Number 7 and number 9, where it would be reflected. It depends on which.
In department community events, is that an increase as well coming up for more events we're planning?
So what we utilize that for is a multitude of things. So we buy, out of that events money, we buy plastic badges that we give out to the kids throughout the year. We buy Halloween bags that we give out to kids in the community. That is the cost of those items that we buy.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And then dues and subscriptions went up significantly, huh?
Yes, they did.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Thank you for that, Lisa. Any questions? Jonna?
Thank you, Vaughn, through you. I was just curious, when I went to get my license to carry, it took almost a year for me to get it in the mail, and I'm not complaining. I'm just noting the fact that he was very overworked, and he only is one person, and there was obviously a lot of work to do. When I went to get it renewed, similar situation. Again, I'm not complaining, but is there any consideration for getting him some extra help in this budget? I'm just curious. Thank you.
So there are a task force that we're actually using right now to tackle that. So we have a newly appointed lieutenant that is in charge of doing that, as well as the previous sergeant that is working on it, and I have a patrol officer that's also helping out.
Wonderful, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Dave, you have a question?
Yeah, through you, Vaughn, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chief McNamara. I want to tell you that the previous speaker mentioned some of the things our town has gone through, and I got to tell you, my heart was broken, and I didn't know where it was going to go. I was like, gee, this is not good, and I didn't know how we could ever get out of that kind of situation until I saw you step up, not just in the media, but also with that letter. That letter was spot on. It was the message that I felt had to be said. And the confidence level shot through the roof in terms of how I felt the leadership in the police department was going. So I just want to give you a lot of kudos. I feel like that the recruiting should fall into place because we're going to be on positive footing because of the kind of leadership you're bringing. It was phenomenal. So I had to say that.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Now, you also mentioned in the presentation about civil service and the recruiting of the 4 in the academy. And then you also mentioned veterans that you were able to attract. How many veterans?
So they have started 2 right now. We have a third that we've given a conditional offer that's a 3.5-year veteran coming from another agency, starting possibly in the next couple weeks. And we have others in the pipeline that we're doing background checks on that are already certified police officers as well.
Okay, thank you. And that kind of leads to my question about the FTEs. Because it shows that the FY25 was 72.5, and the FTEs for this coming budget is only another half of, or I guess one part-timer, I would assume. So how do we reconcile 7 new recruits in the pipeline against only a half of FTE showing up in the coming up budget?
We are filling vacancies that were already FTEs in the budget.
Okay, so there's some
There were a number
attrition,
of-
there's attrition,
yes.
and natural attrition that's taking place, okay.
Yes.
That's good to know. So my next question, there was support from me to see positive reforms happen in the police department. I got right behind it when the town manager said, we need to do something because there were things going on with the, I don't know, overall, I guess, with the, the positive mental attitude, I guess, needed to be improved over time. And they felt, and at the time, it was that a wellness coordinator was the way to go. I guess this is a question for the town manager, because I just didn't know at the time, and maybe something has changed since I asked the question last year. Has there been any consulting through any of the colleges that are specialized in this area that gave support to how you're constructing the program for the wellness coordinator?
Sure. Through you, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the question, Dave. I want to make sure we're not, it's often confused, peer support with wellness. This is not peer support, that's a higher certification. My son is the director of peer support for Boston EMS. This is a pure wellness program. It's mental wellness, it's physical wellness, it's lifestyle wellness. So the gentleman who runs it, who now reports, that has switched from the police department and the fire department over to HR. But if you want me to answer it now, I'll answer it now, or you can do it through HR, whatever you prefer.
That's an interesting point, and I guess that's up to our chair through Vaughn, whether or not he wants to allow it to start now, or we can pick it up tomorrow with HR, and it shows up as something from FY25 that's being moved for FY26. But I don't, here's the circular problem that occurs. We get to the HR budget, and it's like, well, why are you talking about wellness within the police or fire when that was talked about yesterday? And then I end up in this circular problem of when am I allowed to talk? And it's a very important, obviously, a topic that I'm concerned about, right?
I understand. And so through the chair, if you want the answer now, I'll answer
Mr.
it now.
Carlton, if you'd like to answer it now, it is mentioned last year. It does say it's moved to HR budget, but if you want to cover it now, we can cover it now. It is listed here.
It'd be my pleasure. Not only does the gentleman work now still with police and fire, he's beginning to work with everyday employees. We're expanding the program. I'll give you a couple of generic examples of the impact of this. There are a lot of people in this town and on this finance committee that work very hard, way more than is healthy. And the wellness coordinator has worked with many people in this building and put them on notice that your lifestyle, including my own, is going to come back and get you. As a result of feedback I got, I've changed my diet. I've changed my attitude about the seriousness and the time sensitivity of something that's got to get done on Saturday that could be done on Monday. That stuff never crossed my mind. And I suffer from heart disease, so that's an important factor in my life, and I've changed my life. He continues to work particularly with the new recruits in the police department because they're younger, who consult with him often about the pressures of policing that they encourage on the streets every day. He continues to work with guys and gals who suffer chronic acute crises, like going to a suicide. He can't provide the counseling, but he earns the trust of the rank and file and convinces them to accept counseling, and then he works with the Norfolk County team to provide that support. So he's a liaison in that particular area. Last, I talked about lifestyle. Believe it or not, even when we turn 67, we're not always good at handling our own financial affairs. He's arranged for financial advisors and financial presentations, child rearing, infant caring for all the young police officers and firemen who are now facing that stress and not getting the sleep they get. So it's not peer counseling as much as it is wellness and lifestyle, living a well-lit life. Now, what led us to this is, as we know, there were a couple of tragedies in our police department with a police officer, well, a couple of police officers that we just didn't know were ill. He, in both cases, men, were living unhealthy lifestyles, 80 hours a week of work, and you know, he died. And there was nobody there to say, you know, smarten up, man. Cops don't do that. Firemen don't do that. So we're getting some real traction within the police and fire community, but now it's expanding to other parts of the community. He's got employees doing yoga at lunchtime, or yoga, and I'm not doing that, Dave. No yoga for me.
I do desk yoga at my desk every, once, twice a month.
You are a much better man than I.
It's all done virtually at our office.
So in closing, Mr. Chairman, and to you, Dave, it's about lifestyle, not crisis management. And a lot of, if you read last Sunday's Globe, there was a story just on wellness about how companies are signing up to supporting wellness coordinators that keep wellness issues and education about wellness, mental, physical, educational, at top of mind. So it is working, it is paying off. It's a modest investment for all of our employees. He is presenting at the wellness fair we're having next week. And I was reminded that if anybody, in addition to Dave, because it is a very fair question, it's a new employee. If anybody wants to really know what it's about, he presented to the board, I think it was August 17th. I'll get the exact date for you. You could hear a pin drop in the room. He talked about why he left policing, what it was doing to his well-being as a human being. He left a month before he was fully vested as a police officer because it had changed him so much. He didn't want to be a cop. And he didn't have anybody to go to talk to about it. And so that's why he's so passionate about it. Thank you for giving me that opportunity.
Well, thank you very much for that.
I'm actually...
I know,
Oh,
I
good.
know.
All
I'm
right.
just going to, so that was removed from this budget to HR.
Yes, sir.
Because it is now expanding the program. I just wanted to tie that together. Thank you. Yes, Dave.
Appreciate that, Vaughn. Thanks for clearing that up. So when I provided my full-throated support of providing reform, it was based on doing it in a way that was going to be data-driven. It was going to be following the best practices, which are very hard to find. If you try to research it, there's not a lot of towns or cities doing this. When I researched it, there are great colleges available in Massachusetts who actually get embedded into the public safety communities that they're doing this for as experimental. It's very, very cutting-edge kind of stuff, but there is there's a reason why they don't just say, well, it sounds good. All those things you described, they sound, sounds wonderful. Better diet, better finances. I get to reveal things about my mental state that might catch something early. All those things sound really wonderful. There's a term I'd like to share with you that I learned from a professional psychologist, a doctor, who said that the word that you have to concern yourself as you get into programs, especially ones that are unknown, when you go into the unknown and you're trying to develop a program, is the word iatrogenic. IATROGENIC. Basically what it means is that you go into a program on a theory that it makes common sense. It sounds very sensible what you said. What happens in this world of when they study the wellness coordinator position in those cities is they're being very, very careful and they're collecting data to make sure that iatrogenic doesn't happen, which is a reversal of what you thought. I liken it to, just for in simple terms, is that, the old expression, the road to hell is paved in good intentions. Well, we could have the best intentions of the world, but I want to make sure that this program is not just going to send us down to hell, but actually do something in the right direction that we all common sense would tell us that we are going to go in the right direction with it. And that's why I asked all these questions in the emails, because these are the questions, the kind of questions that they're asking in those other communities. So why wouldn't we, if we're not going to hire outside resources to develop that position, why can't we at least collect the data that they are?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. So as you know, in our 25 budget, all we budgeted was salary. We didn't budget consultants, we didn't budget trainers, we didn't budget, because we didn't know what the heck it was. We now know, and you'll see in our 26 budget, we've got a line item for that particular issue, to hire professional speakers, professional experts in certain areas. The difficult part, your point is well taken about data, but the difficult part about that is he is not free to record, even keep notes. My son's an expert in this area. He can't keep notes. He doesn't report to the chief at Boston EMS because of HIPAA laws. I don't know if it's HIPAA or HEPA. HIPAA laws. So, I just gave an example of a tragic patrolman who died that we didn't help. I probably shouldn't have even said that much because everything is protected. So you're right, we don't know the outcome. The Globe made that point last Sunday, is there are good intentions, there are great programs, there are people who are saying they benefit from it every day. Tough to measure outcomes, however.
No, I
All right, thank you for that. We don't want to get too far down the road on this, so let's wrap this up.
I'm going to wrap this up.
Thank you.
I promise I will. It's an
And-
important topic.
Dave, I'd
It's
love to
very
talk
new.
more about it offline.
It's not about individuals and even anything specific about categories that you want to talk about. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying very general information, statistics about things that are happening within the public safety. The question that I'm right now waiting for, which I think it was promised that it would come, but I haven't received yet, was police and fire number of days out of work due to job-related illnesses across each department. That's not asking for any kind of HIPAA-related information. I'm asking number of days.
Dave, I
That's
can tell you, I'm sorry, Vaughn, it'll be very brief. I can tell you why that's delayed in coming. You asked the question in the context of the wellness program, and there is no correlation. So people are very concerned. We give data all the time, every day, but when it's asked in the context of the effectiveness of the wellness program, an injured on duty is not related to wellness. A fireman or medic getting sick is not uncommon. They deal with sick people every day. It's not a testimonial or a criticism of a wellness program.
These are what the professionals told me were important to
Dave,
collect.
we don't want to get
And I
too-
hope, what I
Dave,
want to tell
Dave, we don't want to get too far into this
I'll
wellness
just-
coordinator. They don't have the answer to
Point
this
of
question.
personal privilege then, is that I hope that the Finance Committee, after I am no longer able to serve here, pick up on the same questions to collect the data so that this kind of thing is not just going to be out there and just hope for the best, cross fingers that everybody's going to just be just fine with this position. Please collect the data.
All right, thank you very much for that, Dave. Any other questions or comments? Lisa?
Hi, so let me try to ask this in a question. It's not just specific to just this wellness position. It's to the point that we all want, as taxpayers and as humans, the very best of everything for everyone. That's a given. However, given that we're just going over the budget here, items like this, where people can be served in another manner, instead of keep adding to the budget, positions like this that never existed. This is happening over and over again, and I'm asking the question in terms of where can the taxpayers see that we're actually not trying to keep adding to the budget, but being cognizant. And again, that comes back to, of course, there's other capital projects, and we want to try to avoid debt exclusions. So that's the context of the question.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I need to answer that. There's just incorrect information. My job as your town manager is to make those tough decisions every day. As you well know from the introduction we gave you to your budget, we've got almost 19 fewer employees today than we had 2 years ago. So we don't just keep adding to the budget. We make conscious decisions every day. What brings value to our organization? What brings value to our taxpayers? That evaluation has resulted in 19 fewer positions in the last 24 months. We're not the suggestion that we just keep adding. That's not my budget. That may be another budget. It's not my budget. We make that decision every day. We consolidate positions. We don't replace people. We combine management positions. I don't think we either don't understand or just don't want to acknowledge we have 19 fewer employees, fewer insurance policies today than we did 2 years ago. And yes, me, because it's my job. It's not the Finance Committee's job. It's my job to make those decisions, recommend them to the board. They put them in a budget, and now it comes to you for analysis, so this discussion is healthy. But I want to reject the premise that we just keep adding costs. We've got 19 fewer employees than we had 2 years ago.
All right, thank you very much for that,
Through
Mr.
you,
Coulter.
Vaughn, excuse me.
I'm going to take questions from other committee
Well,
members. Do we
this is
have,
a follow-up to the same thing. I'm not done with that.
somebody else might ask the same question, so
Well,
I'm
I'd
going
like,
to check
then
with the rest
they
of the
wouldn't have
committee.
to ask it. So I'll finish, and then we can move on, hopefully. So it's not just a matter of numbers through you, Vaughn. The budget is exponentially increasing year over year. So I'm not just talking about one position. The 19 fewer positions, we got rid of dispatches. So it's also through attrition that positions may be decreasing.
We're 19 fewer employees down. We could talk all night about who they are.
But we won't. We're going to go back to the committee. Do we have any other questions or comments from the committee on the police budget? Carolyn.
Thank you. Just through you on that wellness coordinator, since we're talking about it now. Would that position help with like any discounts on town health insurance costs?
That's a good question that I'll ask them tomorrow if they'll consider that. It may be helpful with Maya, our liability insurance cover. It's a great question. I'll get the answer to it.
Thank you. And just a comment. I've spoken with a couple of people that have told me that having somebody who has been in law enforcement or in the fire department to speak to help coordinate some of these things has been very helpful, because some of the people, the police and fire officers, don't feel comfortable necessarily going to they feel comfortable approaching someone who's been in their shoes. And so they've spoken very highly of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Heidi.
What exactly is photostats and photographs, and why do we not do it anymore?
Heidi, I'm so glad you didn't ask me that.
It's been moved.
It's just been moved. Photostats are a little outdated, so we've just moved it into the office products.
So what are they?
Oh,
It's
like a fax machine.
Yeah, it's a fax machine, it's photocopy supplies, it's things like that. So we're trying to eliminate stuff that's older than most of us and bring us back into the 21st century.
Okay, that makes me feel really young.
we do still have a fax machine though, so.
Next to the rotary phones.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. Any other questions or comments from the committee on the police budget, part of Article 14, general fund operating budget? Hearing none. Any questions or comments from the public on the police budget, part of Article 14, general fund operating budget for FY26? Cynthia, please identify yourself for the record.
Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street. I actually was a special police officer for 2 years. I never arrested anyone, but I did flash my badge. I am from a law enforcement family. We're up to 8 now that have either currently or in the past served in law enforcement. If all you know about TV is, all about law enforcement or firefighting, because we have some of them too, is what you see on TV. Those people are actors, they're not real people. At the end of the day, they go home and relax. But the job is with you 24 hours a day. If you're not working, you're thinking about something that happened at work or something that's going to happen at work. And it takes a very special kind of person to have those folks open up to. Years ago, there was actually a psychologist that worked with our police department. I don't know what he got paid. But it's a very specialized field. It's a very what's hard for people to realize is it's da-da-da-da-da-da-da, what a lovely day, and then all hell breaks loose. And you've got to somehow shift gears and do everything right, because everyone's got a camera now, And there's an incredible amount of stress involved, and people forget to take care of themselves, even if this individual is not a licensed psychologist or whatever. Bringing in people from the outside sounds like a good idea, or say, well, they can be training or whatever. If you haven't been in law enforcement, if you haven't been in a fire situation, you think you can imagine it because you've been watching LA Law or whatever, or Law and Order for 100 years, and Chicago PD and all that. That's not real life. These are real people. They're not acting like firefighters. They're not acting like police officers. And if someone to talk to makes a difference in someone's life and makes them go home and be with their family in a normal way rather than be angry or upset, it's worth every penny.
Thank you very much for that. Any other questions or comments from the public on the police budget, part of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget for FY26? Hearing none. Next. Oh, sorry, I did not see your hand, Mr. Gito. I'm terribly sorry. Please step forward and identify yourself for the record.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lou Gito, 1261 West Street, and on the Board of Selectmen. I sent you a note a while ago on a number of issues. We've been talking about one aspect of policing, which is the problems that police officers have, firefighters have, and others. And that's a very important topic. And I supported work in this area, and am glad that we are doing that. That represents a very, very small part of a $9 million budget. The item, there were several items talked about here. One was the pay for people. I'm not going to go back into that. I sent something to you on that, and it's been covered, I think, sufficiently. What I would like to do is talk about the fact that we have every year a very high overtime budget. It's $640,000, I believe, this year. That's the overtime. Now, when you look back, there's been a lot of budget turnback. I would suggest that we recognize that when we talk about raising the budget year to year, we're talking about last year's budget and then this year's budget. It's going to increase only so much. But the other important part of that is what the actual expenditures are. Those are a lot less than the budget amount. And there needs to be some accommodation for that actual expenditure being considered in your budgets. Because each year, if you don't consider that, you just add on to, you add 2 or 3% onto what you haven't expended. So you're increasing that part of the budget and the opportunities for doing whatever you want with that money. I would suggest that you consider taking $200,000 out of that $640,000 and just lower the budget in that area and put the money away somewhere else to be used. You've got your reserves for things that are unforeseen, which is not the overtime part of it. And you have the understanding that you have carryover each year. So you're not really putting the town at risk by doing that. You're trying to get a little bit of control over the budget. And you know that last year we didn't fill a number of positions. This year we're not going to fill a number of positions. And you're going to have the money in the budget to carry it over for next year. And it's highly unlikely that you're going to have a problem at the end of the day because you have a whole lot of history to look at. And you can start getting a little bit better handle on the budget. So I would suggest that you do that. When I was a younger person, actually did a lot of budgeting. And I'm not an expert in it like some of the experts sitting in front of you there, but I'm not a neophyte either. So I just suggest that you take a peek at that. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for that. Any other questions or comments from the public on the police budget, part of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget, FY26? Hearing none. Next, we're going to go to the annual. We already went through the committee. Do you have a quick comment here, Dave?
Well, I think I just want to close the loop on the previous speaker who said that there was a huge turnback in the past, right? Because they had no civil service at the time, and we did see a lot of turnbacks out of this department in the past. Then we heard a presentation that said that the cost of the department went up because of dropping out of civil service, because now we're competing for people in the same department. So I'm not sure where this is going. I do know that there was very heavy appropriations because we needed more people, but it was hard to get. We couldn't get the people in the seats. So maybe somebody, in the chief maybe could help say, yes, there won't be as much of a turnback anticipated because we are able to fill the seats that are driving this higher number, as opposed to past years in which we had this big number as a goal because we wish we had those seats but couldn't get them. So are we getting them or are we not getting them?
So there are a couple things I'd like to, through you, Mr. Chair. We have hired or have potential hires 8 people in less than a year. We have a pool of recruits that we are pouring through recruitment letters every single day to come work for our department. I expect every position to be filled for next year's budget. That's first and foremost. There may be unexpected retirements and we'll have to fill from there, but I expect every vacancy to be filled in next year's budget. We've hired 8 just in the last 6 months. Some of them are not going to academies. They're coming in, doing field training, and they are already certified police officers. We have a list of those people still applying for our positions that are vacant right now. I believe that we will have the positions filled.
Yeah, with very competitive scenarios
Correct.
in each one as well. All right, thank you.
And we are competing with communities, and their salaries are the number one thing that they look at. But I'd also like to address this previous speaker's comment about overtime, and just make note that in the actuals in 2024 was $714,982. approved for FY '25 is $606,670, and what we're asking for is $640,000 within this next year's budget, which includes the raises that everybody got, contractually approved. So to ask for that increase is what's necessary.
All right, thank you very much for that. Any other questions or comments from the public on the police budget, part of Article 14, General Fund operating budget for FY '26? Excuse me?
Could I say one thing, at a back and forth?
We're not going to have a back and forth here today, though. We don't want to have a back and forth, a bunch of back and forth. Do you have a quick comment on this? We don't want to have a bunch of back and forth.
Just if you think about having a full staffing, then there's no need for as much overtime.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Any other questions or comments from the public? The police budget, Article 14, General Fund operating budget, FY '26. Hearing none. Next section, animal control, page 44, part of Article 14, General Fund operating budget for FY '26.
I don't think there's much for a presentation on this one, so if I'll take any questions.
All right. Any questions from the committee on the animal control budget, page 44, part of Article 14, General Fund operating budget? Chet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, last year we, out of the dispatch money that we saved by going regional, we gave this department a $20,000 raise. That came out of the operational budget. Then they did a transfer for $20,000. Plus, this department got a COLA allowance plus the 3% raise. Now we're giving her a 2% raise, and her salary is going to 86. First of all, before I do that, is she salary or is she hourly wage? I mean, everybody knows who it is.
She's under a contract.
A contract.
Yep, she's an employee that's in a union.
Okay, so that $76,000 is the contract price?
Contractual, yes.
Okay, so it's contractual, is she allowed overtime? Do we have to pay overtime?
Check 1 second, please, if you wouldn't mind. I think you should. Not a salary.
No, she's in a union.
That's fine, I just want the answer.
So, repeat your question, Chet. I
My
apologize.
question is, if this, the person that's animal control officer is a contractual position, does that position require them to get overtime pay?
So a number of years ago, we eliminated a part-time position. So the only person that responds in is the animal control officer. There is some overtime, but it's not extensive.
I think almost $10,000 is extensive for overtime for a contractual person. I mean, how many times does she go out at night to pick up stray dogs or whatever animals that she has to pick up? My point is, I think that's excessive, you know, for overtime for a position that's $76,000. And contractual to me means you're on call, you know, you work so many hours, or I mean, not so many hours, but you are on call, just almost like a salary person.
She is on call, and she does respond in on certain types of calls. There is a limit that she will come in for, because I've limited what she will come in for overtime.
Well,
she is an employee that works 40 hours a week, and there are times when there are emergencies when she is required to come in.
Well, I just have a little heartburn about this one, but thank you. I just don't think that one person, one department should be making $86,000. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that, Chet. Lisa, you have a question?
Hi. So I'm just looking at the FY '24 actual overtime was at 59.85. How much year-to-date overtime is there right now on this? I agree with my associate here, just on the overtime line.
I don't have today's year-to-date overtime that she has.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that, Carolyn.
I had a similar question. Could you get it for us?
Certainly.
Thank you.
All right,
So
thank
was
you.
the 9,500 put in there just as an amount so that there's something there?
Correct.
To allow for it, but if she doesn't, if you don't spend it, it just
We don't
goes back
spend
to
it
the
just to
town?
spend it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the committee on the animal control budget part of the police budget? Dave?
Thank you, Vaughn, through you. Yeah, just so I'm clear, when you're in a hourly position, whether or not it's contracted or, regardless of that, you get overtime in that model, but in a salary position, there's no overtime? Or is salary like there's a number of hours and you're going to get a salary with a bump? Like, is that how that works? Regardless of hourly or salary, the overtime kicks in based on, like, I'm trying to understand how part-time would generate overtime if they're just being paid a certain number of hours. They're paying, here you go, here's the number of hours. What's overtime from from?
If I may, overtime falls into the Fair Labor Standards Act when you're on salary, so there's certain rules and requirements you have to follow. However, I believe this person is on a 40-hour work week, please correct me if I'm wrong, and when she goes above 40 hours, let's say there's an accident and somebody hits a deer and she's got to go get the deer off the road, she is entitled to overtime when she goes to deal with those types of issues. So it's not a regular 9-to-5 job. There are times when you do have to have overtime. If I misspoke, Chief, please let me know.
Okay. So, through you, Vaughn, I just want to also, there was a July meeting in which we had to take care of what the previous speaker mentioned, which was the change in income, because we did what we had to do to keep, with all those things in consideration, lots of work, not enough money in the budget, and we came in and we did a transfer in order to make sure it happened, and which is fine. I'm just wondering, are we getting any departments with the same situation? Like, we used to get once in a while, and maybe it's something that I've not seen, and maybe it's just something that traditionally I've seen, but maybe I don't see as much, which is like a quarterly, or I'm not even interested in quarterly every quarter. I'm more interested in this time of year, knowing how are we trending in the overall budget? Are we seeing departments that are going to be in that same boat where I could anticipate a July, oh, hey, guys, can you spin up a meeting in 2 weeks because we have to do major transfers like that?
It's a great question, Dave. We got the most recent report on that in December. On Tuesday morning, Mark and Biz and I are holding a department head meeting on this very topic. We need to know where they are currently through February 28th, year-to-date, so we can plan. We're so close to the business, we know generally which departments are probably going to need some sort of transfer. I bet I'm going to be right on that. I want to just say to you that, and to Chet, the reason I was trying to get clarification from Donna, when I came here, I was confused about it as well. It was different. There were union contracts where people are paid by the hour, but they're considered salary because they're paid for 40 hours. And by virtue of their union contracts, after 40 hours, they're paid overtime. I had never seen it before, and that's why I was trying to clarify it for you. I had never seen it before, but we inherited as part of the CBAs, that it goes back decades. It's very unusual.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Coulter.
I just have one more, if I can.
Hang on a second. I'm thanking Mr. Coulter. Dave, do you have another question on this budget?
I do.
Thank you.
Is there, I'm actually losing my train of thought because I thought I had the floor. I'm sorry. But are we able to anticipate ahead of town meeting where we might be able to do the transfer within an article as opposed to through a July situation, because it's much easier when town meeting has a look at this instead of major shifts in transfers for departments like that.
We don't want to get too far down the road on transfers and all that. That's not really part of this budget. So let's try to stay on topic here. Do you have any questions regarding this budget, not transfers we might be doing at the end of the year?
At what point in the hearings would it be appropriate to ask such a
You're
question?
asking when we're going to do transfers.
No, I'm
at the end of the
asking
year.
when it would be appropriate to ask the question.
Not at this point.
No.
Yes, Carolyn?
Not at this point.
Is there an article to do transfers in the warrant?
No, may I run, I can simplify it.
So I
It would
guess,
come through the FinCom. So the last two, under the Municipal Relief Act of 2006, municipalities are now allowed, the schools can do it year-round, all 12 months. The town can transfer money internally in May, June, right up through July 15th. We know, because we're very close to the business, where there's going to be turnbacks, where they need me a couple of bucks. I can tell you now, we will not be going to town meeting and looking for an article to transfer. We will be coming before this body, asking for permission in that 11th and 12th month of the year to transfer from department to
that
department.
allows you to transfer from department to department, and that's what's allowed. So
Yes.
Under Mass General
there would be
law.
no way to put it before the town meeting.
It's not
Or no,
required- it's
not
not
required to, so I guess,
By statute, it's up to the FinCom.
thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that. Any other questions from the Committee on Animal Control, page 44, part of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget? Hearing none. Any questions or comments from the public on Animal Control Budget, part of Article 14, General Fund Operating? Cynthia, please identify yourself for the record.
Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street, which is a farm. One of the jobs you may not realize that the animal control officer does, she doesn't just pick up stray cats and stray dogs or respond when there's a dog bite, which would probably keep her busy. She also does annual barn inspections, and anyone who owns like chickens or a horse or a pony or a donkey, a bunch of ducks. Like me, I also have sheep and goats and a pig and whatever. She actually comes on site and checks the animals, checks food and water, and makes sure that it's stored properly. Also checks their accommodations. If she feels that there's too many chickens in the coop, or in my case, there were too many goats in the Quonset hut, she makes recommendations about how you can treat the animals more humanely, which we are glad to follow. So it isn't just the cartoon dog catcher. There's a lot more to this job than you think.
Thank you very much for that, Cynthia. Any other questions, comments from the public? Animal Control Budget, part of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget for FY26. Hearing none. Next item on the agenda, Civilian Dispatchers, page 38, part of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget.
Any questions on this budget?
Any questions from the committee on civilian dispatchers? Heidi?
Since we switched to the non-local dispatch, that has a name,
Holbrook, yes.
Regional 911, what is the feedback that you've gotten? Because, I mean, it has shown a great amount of savings in this budget, because the numbers are very, very different. But like, what are the benefits and what are the cons of making that shift?
So it is, for the police department, it's almost 1 year since we've moved over there. It's a little bit more for the fire department. And again, you know, we're working through complaints and issues that come up, and it's a constant. We have a liaison that works with them. We work very closely with their organization and their structure to deal with any concerns that, whether it's on the police side, people calling, or it is a response time, or any concerns on the police officer's side with the way things are dispatched. So it's a constant work in progress. They're hiring, they've also expanded other communities that they've taken on board as well over there, so they have a lot of new staffing, and so it just is a work in progress.
I asked because I'm totally like, if you see something, say something. So my kids always joke around because they're like, how many times did you call 911 this month? And there was one time I called and it went to the different fire station. There was some road issue and they went to the wrong fire station. And so they called me back and it ended up being like, I don't know, I ended up talking to somebody for like 15 or 20 minutes about the transition. So I know that there is some growing pains that have gone on with that just through my own experiences. And one of my own frustrations is that even if I call the non-emergency number, it still goes to dispatch. It doesn't go to Stoughton.
That is correct. If you call the 24, the old school people that know, 2424 line, it will be answered by dispatch because there are many people that use that line and need police services. So we still want the consistency that it's coming through the dispatch.
So, and my kids have it memorized because you had the bracelets a while ago. So thank
Yes.
you for that. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Some of the community events funds.
Yep.
All right, thank you very much for that, Chet. Do you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The chief just answered it. It was about the public safety aid. That is the one you're talking about, the dispatch for 2424? You know, 344-2424? That's the person that they would be calling at the station? I'm just, the safety aid, civilian, public safety aid.
The civilian aid that was on a contractual agreement to keep a civilian from the previous dispatchers, is that what you're?
That's what I'm asking,
Okay.
yeah. But they don't answer the 2424 line.
No,
the
2424 line is answered over in Holbrook at the regional.
Okay.
And then if it needs to be transferred back to the police station, they do that.
Okay,
And then there's
so-
someone that answers the phone there.
So this person here is actually the old dispatcher that was left, that stayed, didn't want to transfer?
It is one person that was a previous dispatcher, correct?
Right. And what does that person do at the station now? I know it's safety aid, but what is a safety aid?
Yes, there's a number of things in that job description that was created that was, again, contractually agreed upon to fill that position.
Because that person wanted to stay and not transfer, is that correct?
No, because we have a lot of things that we still have an open police station. We still have people that are walking in the building needing services. And so the civilian aid helps out with that, helps out with administrative paperwork as well at the desk, helps out with the officer that's on the desk.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that, Chet. Jonna, do you have a question?
I do. Thank you very much, Vaughn. Through you, last year at town meeting, one of the town meeting reps asked if the monies were going to be saved or if they were going to be spent, and then we were told that they would definitely be saved. A few weeks later, 6 weeks later in July, all the money was spent. So I wanted to know why that was when we were told one thing and then another thing happened, and what the continued protocol will be for those monies. Thank you.
Is that a question to this budget?
I'm not sure if it's even a question for last budget. As
All right, thank
Finance
you.
Committee members know, money saved goes back into the general account and gets reallocated by this committee and by the town meeting. We're saving about $900,000 a year when we disbanded local dispatch and received about $8 million in capital improvements in the new station and the other stations. Any savings goes back to the general account and then gets reallocated by town meeting.
All right, thank you
Excuse
very
me,
much for that.
I just wanted clarification. This particular town meeting person asked specifically if the monies from the 911 dispatch were going to be saved. They asked that specifically, and we were told yes.
And yes, they were saved.
But you said they were reallocated, and then they were spent.
Our job is to save them. It's up to town meeting to spend it.
Okay, but we went to Finance Committee in July, and the monies were spent. That's what I'm trying to say.
I'm really, I'm sorry, I'm not following.
So the money was saved from the budget and then spent elsewhere.
We spent it like on the animal control person and, because she needed overtime in July, in a July
Well,
meeting.
that's why I'm trying to clarify if
Oh,
we're talking
okay.
about this budget.
That may be relevant to the last question. In May and June, up to July 15th, there can be money used from one department to be transferred, that has a surplus, to be transferred into another department that may have a deficit.
Okay,
Maybe
but-
that's what you're referring to.
Well, that's still not clarified to me because she specifically asked, will this money be saved? Like, I don't know, in the stabilization fund, free cash, whatever. And she was told it would be, and then within 6 weeks, it was gone. It was all spent at that July meeting when we transferred monies, like for a drone, for the animal shelter, the animal person. Those are the things we spent it on 6 weeks later.
Last thing I'll say about it, Mr. Chairman, is in the last 2 months of the year, if there was money saved and then reallocated, that couldn't happen without going through this committee and going through the Board of Selectmen. It's not the department head that can reallocate it. It has to go through a transfer through this committee. I hope that helps.
All right, thank you very much for that. Any other questions or comments from the committee on the civilian dispatches budget? Dave?
Yeah, through you, Vaughn, thank you. So part of that program in which we got the extra money and savings also has like a shelf life, right, where costs will come in over time. So I'm just curious as to where it goes. Like when the cost shows up in that future state of, oh, we're no longer getting the free ride because we entered into it, where will it show? Will it show up under this budget called civilian dispatchers when it becomes our cost? Will the cost show up here? Is that where I'll see it? Because it's sort of like a intergovernmental thing, right? Where we're spending money on something that's away from where we operate, right?
Okay, you're getting a little bit far down the road. That's not, don't interrupt, Dave. You're getting far down the road. That's a future budget, but I will allow this to get a response. But we're not going to walk way down this road.
So I will answer that. We decided to keep this budget the way it is so that when we have those costs come in, it goes back into this budget, central dispatch budget. Discussion between budget team.
And I appreciate the answer.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Civilian dispatchers budget, part of Article 14, general fund operating budget. Hearing none. Questions or comments from the public? Civilian dispatchers budget, part of Article 14, general fund operating budget. Hearing none. Next item on the agenda is crossing guards, page 37, also part of Article 14.
I will ask any questions. It's not much to this budget.
Any questions from the committee on the crossing guards budget? Part of Article 14, general fund operating budget. Hearing none. Questions or comments from the public? The crossing guards budget, part of Article 14, general fund operating budget for FY26. Hearing none. Thank you very much for the presentation. We will go to the next part of the agenda. We have annual town meeting articles, Article 27, Police Department Capital. Item 1, live scan fingerprint machine for $22,000. It's not on the page, it's just Article 27.
Page 19 in the warrant.
In the warrant, yes. Thank you, Mr. Anzavino.
So this is a piece of equipment that is utilized quite frequently and is in need of replacement. It was last purchased in 2016.
All right, thank you very much for that. So it's 9 years old then, huh? All right. Any questions from the committee on Article 27, Item 1, live scan fingerprint machine? John? Well, it's two parts to it, yeah. The first part's live scan. John?
Chief, just kind of like two-parter. What's the lifespan of the machine, and is there any money we could get back if it's still within a good lifespan, trading in for something new?
John, you want to get closer to the mic so everyone can hear you? People at home are just really itching to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, just a two-part kind of question for the chief. Just what's the lifespan of this machine? And if we're trading it in, is there potential to trade in and get money off for like the new one? If it's, let's say, a 20-year lifespan, but you train it 9 years now, so forth.
I would say that the technology is just moving so quickly that we never used to take palm prints. Now we do. So the technology, we don't get anything back for trading it in. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee on Article 27, Item 1, live scan fingerprint machine? Questions or comments from the public? Article 27, live scan fingerprint machine, which is Item 1. Hearing none. Next item, we have cruisers. Item 2 on Article 27, 3 standard and 1 unmarked, $256,000. You have a question before the presentation? Okay, Dave.
Oh, no, not before. Oh, I thought they were giving it to us to ask questions. Is there a presentation?
The presentation is, I think you have all the backup
Perfect.
with regards to the vehicles.
Okay, any questions from the committee? Article 27, Item 2, cruisers. There you go, Dave.
I didn't mean to be, all right, so in the past, the way I've always understood the policy that was created by a previous finance committee way back when was to do 3 new cars a year. This one has an extra one, so I'm just trying to see whether we have to change the policy or whether we're needing just an unusual, like, unforeseen situation where we need a 4th.
I think it was a select board.
No, it's select.
It was a select board
It was
policy.
a select board policy. I'm sorry, I take that back. I thought it was originated with the finance committee, but that's okay. Same question. Did it change? Well, we now have 4 cars where we usually had a 3-car. We'd cycle out 3 and always have 3 on the following year's warrant. That's how that's how I understood the policy.
So it was a select board and policy, and this year, the reason for the fourth vehicle, which is an unmarked vehicle, is for the deputy chief position, for an unmarked vehicle. So an unmarked, as was asked me earlier by a member, it has no markings on it. It's similar to the vehicle that I drive. It has lights in it, but it is not marked with any police decals.
Okay, so it's not a permanent policy thing. It's just a one-off.
Correct.
It's just, and then it will go back to the 3 even with this extra vehicle.
Yes.
Well, thank you for that, Dave. Elliot, you have a question on this?
I do indeed. The cruisers you're replacing, how well have they performed? Have they been pretty good, pretty trouble prone? I remember once we got a discount on Dodge things, and there were dogs, and not police dogs.
We haven't bought Dodge for a long time, sir.
No, I know, but
But
how the new ones
the
are?
Explorers are, as you can see, the Explorers are what we're hoping to go after, but we've gone back and forth between supply and demand, between getting Ford Explorers and Tahoes, and it really comes down to what we can get and when we order it. So as I've said in the past, we don't order our vehicles July 1, because if we order them in July 1, we get them right around December. The inclement weather, our luck is sometimes we're repairing brand-new vehicles in the in the wintertime. So we normally present purchasing our vehicles in the fall so that we take delivery of them towards the end of the fiscal year and in the springtime in the better weather. Part of our game time decision at that time of year is which vehicle are we going to get rid of that is costing us the most to repair, or is just a lemon and not worth keeping, and then the mileage. So we really evaluate our fleet at that point, which is the worst vehicles, and those vehicles get traded in when we're going to receive receipt of the new cruisers.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that. Any other questions from the committee? Chet.
Have Carolyn go first.
Carolyn?
I just wanted to make sure I understood that. So these cruisers will either be Explorers or Tahoes?
Correct.
And does that go for the unmarked one as well?
No, the unmarked one, so we'll purchase the marked cruisers first. Fluctuating markets and the cost of the vehicles, again, if you look at the quote, it was back in December of '24.
Right.
We don't know what the cost will be when we actually put in for it. So the last purchase that we'll make will be the unmarked. In years past, I wasn't able to make an unmarked purchase because the cost of those marked cruisers went up so much. So it's the last purchase I make, so that the marked cruisers that are used every day in the fleet.
Those will get there first, and then what kind of car are you looking for an unmarked?
We've done smaller, real small SUVs. We purchased a Traverse in the past. We've had that a couple times.
Okay, I'm just curious, as I, really have no clue.
Okay.
All right, any other questions from the committee on the cruisers? Chet?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, looking at the Article 27, it looks like you have a lot of intertown meeting money turning back in. 256, I'm sorry. Well, actually, we're only going to ask for $161,000 out of free cash. Is that correct? And the rest is going to be out of expired or turnbacks from other town meeting articles? Is that what I'm reading correctly?
From the financial position, yes. We have $94,804.37 from prior articles, and a lot of this funding comes from that sunset clause requirement. And we're reallocating funds, so less free cash we use, less borrowing we do. It's a cost saving, and we're using money that we actually have on the book.
Okay, thank you. That's what I assumed. I just want to clarify that. The other question I have, Chief, is I noticed on the article or the sheet here for the, I can't get it up now. Anyways, there's no trade-in on any vehicles? I know we have quite a few in the parking lot out there in the backyard of the
So
police
we
department.
will get, when we get the trade-in, that's when we get for the value. So we don't know what the trade-in will be.
Okay, so once you
till
get...
the end, yes.
All right, so once you get the firm price of the vehicle, then you'll be able to turn it, are you going to just turn in 3, or are you going to be able to turn in more than 3?
So we will
My
turn.
question is because there is, I counted quite a few police cruisers out there, and I'm not sure that you only have 4 on the shift, right? 4 cruisers on a shift?
No, depending on what shift you're referring to, I mean, yes, I'm
We'll
sure.
say the most active ones.
So the most active shifts, so you can come in and have an officer that has, 2 supervisors, 2 sergeants, a lieutenant. They all have cruisers, 5 patrol officers. They're assigned a cruiser, the SRO. They all have cruisers. We assign a cruiser that has to go to court if officers are going to court because they don't take their personal vehicles and get paid mileage. That's a policy on the town. So training, we have to send people to training. Again, same thing, they'll take a cruiser. So on any given, I'll say Monday through Friday, day shift, you could have as many as 10 or 12 vehicles out. That doesn't include vehicles that are being maintained or, have been involved in a car accident. So routine maintenance, oil changes, tires, rotation, we send that out. We don't do that in-house. So that is lost to us during the day. Sometimes that extends to the evening shift. We also have cruisers that get assigned on details. If they get assigned on a detail, we charge that contractor for cruisers. So on any given day, you could have 13 or 14 cruisers out.
Okay, so that was my point, excuse me, that these vehicles are being utilized and they're just sitting there.
Yes, and then we...
But we still be able to turn in 3 once we get the full purchase price of the 3 vehicles.
Yes.
And we're not going to turn one in for the unmarked car. Is that correct?
No, we're not turning in an unmarked because we don't have one to give back.
Okay. And so both deputies will have unmarked cars?
Correct.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
All right.
Welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee on cruisers? Item 2 for Article 27. Hearing none. Any questions or comments from the public on the cruisers part of Article 27? Police Department Capital. Hearing none. Next item on the agenda is Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget. for the fire department. Thank you very much, Chief, for your presentation.
Thank you,
Have
Chief.
a
Thank you
wonderful
very
evening.
much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
So we're looking for page 39, fire.
Good evening. Oh, sorry, a little too close. Thank you for having us tonight. Go ahead.
Did you want to jump to questions? I didn't know what you were.
I'd be more than happy to. I just wanted to say you have my budget, the footnotes are down below, and I'm.
Okay. All right. Questions from the committee on the fire budget, part of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget for FY26, page 39. Chet.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Again, I'm going to stay with my theme tonight. Department head, 5.9% increase, and assistant chief, 15.7% increase. Is contractual, is that?
Chet, that is contractual. We took all of the stipends and added them into the salary. You can see that as well on the deputies for the police department as well. We took the stipends and put them into the salary, so it makes it looks like the base is much higher, but it's because I was tired of trying to figure out stipends, so I insisted they all be in a flat salary. In your book, you've got all the comparative analysis. We did a very detailed analysis of the chief and the deputy chiefs for chiefs from around the area, and this is where the market is right now. It's in your book, so I think it shows a half a dozen or more chiefs and a half a dozen or more fire chief, assistant chiefs.
No, I understand that, and I do have it.
And it
but-
is under contract, yes.
But our responsibility as finance people to ask questions about any increase over 3%.
Oh, I'm not begrudging you that.
No, I'm just.
Yeah.
But just for clarification, why we're having the big increase.
Market
That's all.
rates.
Right.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Carolyn?
Hi, I have a question. What's the difference between an assistant chief and a deputy fire chief?
Sure. So the assistant chief was put into the CBA back in 2017 or 16. What it does is it actually got a position outside the union. The assistant chief has actually become very popular in Massachusetts because the deputy is in the union, and the assistant is not in the union and part of that bargaining. And I find it very helpful, to be honest, and a lot of departments actually fall in suit. He handles all administration. In the deputy chief really is on an operations side, but that's kind of how we split it in-house.
All right, thank you. That's kind of what I was wondering.
Sure.
All right, thank you very much for that. Any other questions from the committee on the fire budget? Lisa?
Hi, so the in-service training's gone from 12,000 up to 20,000. That's like a 60s. Can you just, what kind of in-service training and education?
So
is
in-service,
costing that much?
yeah, sure. So in-service training, because of the schedule, it's very difficult to either mandate outside training or to send them off. So what we do is we bring training too, right? So whether it's, right now we're working on a whole new incident command system that's actually been recommended by NIOSH. It's a national incident. They basically oversee firefighter deaths and fatalities and injuries, but really they're pushing this new system. We got on a regional grant to get all the software, but what we didn't get is the trainers to come in and then pay them to come in and so that's type of in-service training or to host events. I find that it's very successful. The thing is now everything is at a cost, right? And before, when we'd just be able to bring in locals, bringing somebody in from New Hampshire or New York or whatever, we have to put them up. There's certain things that are just kind of like taking out that expense while they're getting it and then paying for that in-service training.
And you said, I'm sorry, who's requiring that? Or when you said they, can you define they?
Sure. So NFPA, National Fire Protection Agency, NIOSH. I don't understand. I'm not exactly sure. It's like
I don't need the, but it's a federal mandate?
Oh, yeah.
Is it a mandate or?
Well, it's
recommended?
best practice right now. Yeah,
Oh,
and
best
so
practice.
OSHA. I'll tell you right now, OSHA is coming down hard on the fire service, and expect a lot of changes that are going to result in a lot of changes. I'm just so happy we're ahead of it with the new fire station, because that's going to be the cost.
Oh, so best practices does matter. I
Oh,
getcha.
Well,
National Institute of Occupational
Thank you.
Safety and Health. You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so in this, my second follow-up is that the data process and maintenance, is that for the software?
No. So the data processing software is our new national reporting system, or our reporting system for all our incidents. When I got in, we had 4 different softwares we're using. We now brought it all under one a couple of years ago through capital. Now we have to maintain that annual fee. So that's where you'll see an increase.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee on the fire budget? Chet, you have a question? Okay. Dave?
Yeah, through you, Vaughn. Thank you. Thank you, Chief Carroll. Appreciate it. The explanation that came up for the increases on the department head and the assistant chief was coming out of stipends. And I just did the math on it, and I just can't get there. So I get, on the emergency management stipend, you get a reduction of $4,000, but we're trying to make up $34,000 between the two salaries.
So I can tell you mine is a 2.5% raise. In my 30 years, I hit a longevity, but it's rolled into my salary.
So it's longevity, not stipends.
Mine is. The assistant chief's was, and you'd have to remind me of your contract.
All right.
Jackson Macomb, assistant chief. My education stipend, holiday pay stipend, and EMT stipend was rolled into my salary line item.
Holiday pay. Okay, so I was looking through those lines that might contribute to the 23,000, and I don't get there, so that's what.
So if you looked at the education line item for the department and the holiday line item for the department, you'll see them both in the negative, and that's because my line item was removed from that, because
Okay.
it's now in the full salary. So when you see 220,000 for the whole department for education stipends, mine is no longer in there. That's why it's shown in the negative this year, where in last year it was in the positive.
Yeah, that
Same
makes
thing with
up
holiday
six.
pay.
Yeah, that makes up the 6K against the 23.
No, plus they got a 2%, there was a 2% increase because of the 2% raise on all the employees. I can either show you after this meeting the details.
I get it. You have your
off.
regular call, you have your regular increase.
Yes.
Yes, plus the 6 is how you get there.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
All right, any other questions from the committee? The fire department budget. Heidi?
So I know a few years ago, you guys got a washing machine and dryer, and you got it, and then you received a grant for it. And so I'm looking here at the laundry. No, I lost it now. It's like $25,000 for laundry. So is that, where did it go?
So the laundry, so that's a whole different item. The laundry is laundry services that come in and they take all bedding, ambulance. We still put sheets and towels on the stretchers. So we take all those, we put them in the front lobby, and we have a local laundry come, and they take it all, and they do a full cleaning of it.
So they sanitize it and
Yeah.
take care of it so that you guys don't have to, okay, all right. And then my other question is, I also remember back in the height of COVID, you needed a lot of extra PPE, and then you were also able to get grants for that. And I see that the PPE line item is like at $40,000.
So that PPE is the firefighting gear. We called it, we originally called it PPE, is basically our turnout gear.
Okay,
Okay, the PPE you're talking about got popular because of COVID. Yeah,
Okay,
it's totally
gotcha.
different. Sure.
okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions from the committee on the fire department budget, fire, Article 14, general fund operating budget, FY26? Hearing none. Questions or comments from the public on the fire budget, part of Article 14, general fund operating budget for FY26? Hearing none. Next item on the agenda, we will go to Article 28, fire department capital, ladder truck, $2,250,000.
So, if you want me. Sure. So I understand it's an expensive item. This is a cross-industry issue. What I'm looking to do is really to sign a contract, because right now the escalation is projected at 6 to 8% a year. It actually had gone up 12%. And just talking to in talking to the Brockton's chief when he just got his ladder, it's gone up 12%. So in talking to the manufacturer, we really want to sign the contract. The turnaround time, the wait time is 44 months. Franklin just received theirs after 44 months, so basically 3.6 years. I really just want to get in line, if I could just say it that simple. I want to sign the contract and save this escalation, because we do need to replace our 1988 ladder. Since 1972, 71, we've been running with one primary ladder and a reserve ladder. We're down to one ladder now. When our ladder got in an accident, our current front piece got in that accident, we ran that ladder, 1988 ladder, and essentially ran it into the ground. She was great to us, but at this time, and I just want to remind the town, our new ladder, our current ladder, 2011, we got in a grant. So this town really has been lucky enough not to really have paid for a ladder since 1988, yeah. So again, I want to get in line. Probably won't receive it for another 3.6 years, unless the industry all of a sudden changes, and there's a lot of issues with that.
All right, thank you very much for that. Do we have any questions from the committee? Carolyn?
Hi, I just want to make sure I understand. So we had two ladders, one that was from 2011 and one that was from 1988, and now you want to replace the 1988 one, but it's kind of already been in an accident?
No, I apologize. The 2011 was in an accident. I don't know whether you had heard about that, but somebody had cut the ladder off, and we had to pull. It had to go out of service and back to the manufacturer, to the
All right,
company.
so when did that happen?
Two years ago. So it was gone for about 4 to 5 months, maybe even longer.
Oh, okay. So, all right,
So we
all right.
ran that 1988, but you may have seen Foxborough's ladder in town. We were borrowing that. We were trying to borrow another ladder.
So it's back now,
It is back now.
but you use that 1988 one, and that's, you still use it, it's all done?
It's catastrophic failure, and it's over 40 years. It really shouldn't have been on the road, but.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the committee? Article 28, fire department capital for the ladder truck. Chet?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, so if we, if the town meeting approves this, when will the payments start? Is that when you sign the contract with that?
If I may, Mr. Chair, to the member, we need to have the funding in place so we can actually enter into the contract, but payments will not begin. Are they looking for a deposit or no?
Well, they give two options here.
Yep.
for this.
We're going to make the best financial option available to the town is what we will do. So if we make a deposit of $95,000, then it will secure us from not having to go up to a 6 to 8% increase over the next couple of
Well,
years. Is
it
that
will-
correct?
It will actually take money off it as
Oh,
well.
reduce the cost.
Yeah, I see it here, but I just kind of curious whether or not, I know this is 97, but I just wanted to make sure that that was correct, that we're not going to be putting a couple $1 million out just to sign a contract.
No, that's where the borrowing authorization comes into play.
Okay.
That will allow us to say, we have funded this, and it gives us the power to enter into the contract.
Okay. Pardon? Right. Okay. And-
You good with that, Chet?
Yeah.
Okay. Elliot, you have a question?
Yes, I do. This is just the cost for the truck. About how much extra bucks is going to be to the ancillary equipment to go with it?
So we allocated that in the price when we were designing this with the manufacturer.
So this is going to be turnkey.
It's going to be yeah, all push button. They give us a key, we'll do that too.
Keyless entry.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Arnie?
Hi, Tom. I didn't, excuse me. I didn't hear your answer about how you were going to finance it.
So there, can I borrow that? You want to do it? Please.
We have a town meeting article to authorize borrowing for $2,250,000. So we authorize the borrowing. It will allow us to enter into the contract with the vendor. So that's how we can move forward on this. The sooner we move forward, the less expensive it will be, because if we wait, it will continue. And what happens is we authorize the borrowing, but we don't take the borrowing until we need the borrowing. So in 3.5 years, then we'll take the borrowing if that's when we need it. So whenever the payments are due, that's when we take the borrowing, and not beforehand.
All right, thank
So-
you very, yes?
Can I just finish? If you don't mind, I'd like to finish. So in other words, in 3.5 years, we'll take out a bond on this and pay it off?
Correct, unless we have another funding source at that time. But we have to get the borrowing authorized in order to move forward. You're welcome.
All right, any other
I'll
questions,
get it.
Carolyn?
Hi, will this be subject to that new sunset bylaw?
I believe we gave you draft articles with the motions in there, and we have requested that this be exempt from the sunset clause.
All right,
Thank
thank you
you.
for that. Lisa?
Hi. So this is a context question. So this is a capital item here. So again, nobody's denying this is a valuable piece of equipment. But in terms of overall money that the town has available to it, I'm looking at the fiscal '26 capital plan that has $34,940,000 items, capital items in there. So I'm just trying to understand against what policies are we deciding when these capital items are going to come to fruition with trying to prevent debt exclusions?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the capital plan is aspirational in nature. We can't afford everything. It's a wish list. It's what the department heads say they want. We have to determine in that analysis what we can afford. And so what you see for the FY26 capital plan is not a full expression of all of our needs. It's an expression of what we can afford. And so those things that didn't make the list will get pushed back. and they may get pushed back again. And we may never build a steel garage over at the golf course, because it's just never going to be a priority in every year. So they state what their needs are, and then we tell them what money we can afford to spend in that particular capital year. That's the policy.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Coulter.
So as a follow-up to that, this relates back to the DLS PDF and video that was sent out to all the FinCom and Select Board members. I think you too, Mr. Coulter, I sent that today too. So that's what they were talking about, to have so that we're not just doing it from year to year, that actually having the policies in place at the Select Board level helps guide us, and then so to help myself as a Finance Committee member and to explain to the taxpayers how these decisions are getting made against written policies.
Sure.
And I know you said we were going to have from, what was it, Collins report?
So to answer your first question, we have a 5-year capital plan. As you know, you've seen it. We've got a 5-year capital plan prepared by the department heads who are closest on the ground to what their needs are. Knowing that we can't afford that 5-year capital plan, we spend a lot of time with people like Scott Carrera, who know equipment, Joe McCrisky, who know trucks, Paul Jaffoon on what we can build and what we can't build, what we can remodel, what we can't remodel. And we make a priority decision on what is a need for this year, not a want. What's a need for this year? And that's what you have before us. So the process is, and it's our policy and our best practice, we develop the capital, the department heads submit their capital plan to Mark. Mark and Biz rate each request in terms of need, want, importance. So they're all rated numerically, quantitatively. We then get into a meeting and we decide what it is we're going to have to spend in the capital budget. We then present it to the board, to the Select Board, and we go through each piece of equipment right down to the spec, the cost, and justifying the need. They then vote the capital plan in the warrant, and now it's before you to get that same input.
Well, thank you very much for that. Do we have any other questions from the committee? Dave?
Someone else? Oh, did Elliot?
Elliot, you have a question?
I suppose I already know the answer to this, but is there any federal or state assistance available for this?
Sure there is, and we've been getting it. In the capital plan was $2.5 million to build a community center. We've now raised $2.5 million through state grants. That's an example of one. Mike got almost 100% financing years ago on his entire ladder truck. We'll make those same applications over the next 3.5 years to see if we'll never need to borrow money for that fire truck. The lady in that office has been extraordinary of identifying pockets of money and getting things paid for. If you look at Mark's plan for the construction, the $1.2 million construction, I believe, for Town Hall, he's already raised over $1 million, close to $1 million in grants. So the actual money that we'll need out of our capital budget isn't $1.2 million; it'll be closer to $200. So we're asking for it, Elliot, all the time. We have our hand out everywhere.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Elliot. Dave, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Vaughn. Appreciate it, and thank you for presenting this one. Could you just assure us that this is the leanest amount of, like, the features and everything to get the price? And I noticed the 12%. By the way, 12%, if you didn't have the 12%, we'd be just under $2 million, but the 12% puts us at $22.50.
On the 12% of what?
I think you mentioned a 12%.
No, I said we had sat down and built this out, and we got this price. Right now, I think after, not this, coming up in the next July, they're going to go up. They're already counting on, with the tariffs and everything, it's going up another 11% rather than that 6 to 8%. So my concern is if we can get this locked in the beginning of July, we already have this price. That's why I worked with them to get this price. We want to be locked in at it.
So they're going to hold this price till when?
Well, they're going to, we kind of talked to them and said, we're going to push this upcoming town meeting. We're not going, if the town meeting votes it down, it's next year.
No, I'm saying if you got it approved, how do you know you have enough? That's the point.
The deposit
question.
locks the price, I think.
The
It locks the-
deposit
it locks the price, yeah.
All right, how much again, because I didn't write down the deposit, what's that amount?
So the deposit, it's $2.2 million for the ladder truck. If you were to put 100% prepayment, you don't have to pay until cash on delivery, correct? So, but if you put 100% down, they'll take $95,000 off the cost of the aerial or the ladder truck. If you put money down on the chassis 100 days before the truck's complete, they'll take, they can delete $20,000. I didn't count on either one of those. They just built that out when I was more interested in showing you that the yearly increase is averaging 6 to 8% per year.
Wait,
If
so
you look at my 5-year
the
cap-
appropriation's for the whole amount,
The whole
and then the
amount.
way that you manage the outlay, or, you know, you're going to encumber only some number after the appropriation. You get the whole appropriation, but you're only going to have a portion of it.
I'm not even going to rely on that, to be honest with you. They wrote that up. I talked to Biz and the town manager. We said, let's just secure the money.
I understand. I just
Okay.
wanted to understand, do we know yet how close we are to what that down payment is?
Well, I don't know whether we're going to do the down payment.
No. We won't necessarily need to do a down payment. We're securing the vehicle.
I'm using bad language, I apologize.
We'll be
Whatever
sec-
it is to secure the,
All we need is the town meeting vote.
Town meeting vote.
That's it.
Okay, perfect.
the town meeting vote, wait, no, that's
Yeah.
not what I don't think I'm hearing. The borrowing authorization, but I was told that they needed something, there was something they needed financially, that they weren't going to take out 22,
Biz, could you clarify this, please?
Yes, I'm
they're
gonna
waiting for
clarify
2.2 million at the end in 4 years?
Okay. If 100% prepayment is made within 15 days of the executed contract, you may deduct $95,000 off the cost of the aerial. That's one option. We won't be paying for this. We won't be doing 100% prepayment. And additionally, we can pay on delivery, and it's COD. So we are, by vote at town meeting, by approving the borrowing, it's going to allow us to enter into this contract to secure the contract at the price that we've been quoted.
So that
And
locks the
that's-
price.
That
It
locks the
price,
price.
but nothing is owed. We owe zero until the end of 4 years, money-wise.
Yes.
There's no money going to the vendor
That is
till
correct.
the end, 100% in 4
Yes.
years.
Rockland
That's-
District's the same.
I'm just trying to make sure I understand that. Often we see you lock in, usually you don't lock something in with a town meeting appropriation, you do it with money, right? Here, I want to lock that in, right?
Mr.
And per this, price is secured till July of '25.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, our esteemed finance manager did say $97. She's trying to do a cover-up right now. That's what we're laughing about.
Okay, so it's going to be locked in with the town meeting vote. Do we
Mr.
have
Chairman, can I
any-
make a bold statement that I'd like someone to write down? Sure. You can write this down. Remember Joe Namath predicted that he'd win the Super Bowl? So I'm telling you, in 4 years, we will take ownership to this truck, and my opinion is we will not borrow a penny.
Okay,
Write
thank
that
you
down.
for that. Dave's writing that down right now. Do we have any other questions?
I
from?
do. I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
Please, Juan, I feel like it's being rushed.
Well,
but
I'm just trying to get to
By the way, in
point.
3 years, Tisdale is here.
Just hang on. Because we have a unique scenario of a lot of free cash in this coming year, can we put any of that money down on this? I don't know how you do it if you don't owe it yet, but is there a way to put it in like the stabilization account? Because we have a stabilization account for just this kind of thing.
Mr. Chair, to the members of the body,
Stop sounding like a teacher.
I'm not a teacher. Anyway, we are working on securing funding from the free cash for future investment. And that town meeting, special town meeting warrant is due to the select board tomorrow for them to review and for them to vote on next week, at which time we will have various funding sources that will put the town in a better financial position for the future.
But we are not discussing the special town meeting tonight.
No, we're done.
Correct. Okay. Do we have any other questions from the
I'm
committee?
sorry, Vaughn, I missed what she just said. Could you repeat that, please?
Biz is up late, she said she's got a headache. For the special town meeting, we have to have the how to pay funding sources tomorrow to submit for the selectmen's meeting to vote on Tuesday. I know they would appreciate your input, so, and I have no problem saying what I'm about to say, is we're going to finish it tomorrow morning, Mark and Biz and I, and as it goes out Thursday, we'll send it to you at the same time. So even before they vote it, maybe you could give them your opinion on what you'd like to do.
Okay.
But we'll get it to you tomorrow
All
at
right.
the same time.
Thank you very much for that. Do we have any other questions
Excuse me.
on
Yes,
the
Bob.
Article 28?
Yep.
Lisa?
So I was just asking because I'm looking on the, I don't know what this, ATM articles, and it's how to pay for it. Isn't it that 2 million, the fire department ladder truck says it's a borrowing? Okay, so,
We have to do the borrowing in order for them to take our order, not take the money.
no,
have it off.
I understand that whole
No.
conversation, yep.
What you don't have in that is we're having a special town meeting that the board is voting on Tuesday night.
Oh, this is the item that needed to be separated.
correct.
Yep.
And that will be in that special article, town meeting article.
Okay, so then my question is either way, it's going to be a debt or a debt, I'm sorry.
There will
a,
absolutely be-
debt, borrowing.
There will absolutely be a borrowing authorization.
If we don't get.
That allows
grants,
them
then-
to take our order. What we're saying and what I'm predicting is at the end of 4 years, when we're ready to take order, I think we'll be in a financial position to pay cash and never have to borrow against that authorization.
So through you, Vaughn, so let's hope that comes to fruition. But if it doesn't, would this be paid for borrowing inside the debt borrowing?
The only debt that becomes debt excluded is if it's a ballot vote, debt excluded.
No, I misspoke by saying debt exclusion. I meant debt inside the budget.
It is inside the budget, that is correct.
So in line with that, do we have, what is our percent?
This is
of
4
debt?
years down the line, so if we have good financial positions, good Moody's ratings, when we go out to bid, then we'll have an accurate interest rate. If we borrowed it today, it could be 5%. We borrow it in 5 years, it could be 20%. It could be 3%. There's a long process involved when you're borrowing with a municipality.
Yeah, I'm asking a larger question here for this fiscal year.
It's not something that you can answer. It does not go into the budget for 2026. We are authorizing to borrow. We do not borrow until we need the money, which is anticipated to be 3.6 years down the road.
Okay, I'm not speaking specifically of this at this moment. That's what I'm speaking of, is what is our debt ratio inside the budget?
We're not going
right
to get
now?
into that. We're going to try to stay on this article.
It's a matter of context. We have
Stay on this
borrowing
article.
articles here.
We need to stay on topic, though. So do you
Well,
have any questions regarding,
It
Dave,
goes
please
to-
don't
It
interrupt.
goes to the email sent out today, Vaughn. How do you expect us to vote on any borrowing articles when we don't know what our debt inside the budget is or the policy that we're trying
We're
to
not
do?
going to talk about policy. Biz, do you know the total debt?
Percentage.
I do not have a percentage off the top of my head. However, currently, the town has outstanding debt of $134 million. We have pending authorized unissued of $50 million. So that is the answer. Some of that is excluded debt, which partially is fire department and partially is the school department, and everything else is within the town budget and the water sewer enterprise funds.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Do we have any other questions from the committee on Article 28, the Fire Department Capital Ladder Truck, $2,250,000? Hearing none. Questions or comments from the public? Article 28, Fire Department Capital Ladder Truck, $2 million. Mr. Anzavino, please identify yourself for the record.
John Anzavino, 25 Ross Ave. I want to go, I know the question was asked, but, and it had to do with the sunset clause, because that was what I was thinking when they were talking 4 years down the line. I believe the answer said that was in the article, in the motion. It's not in the warrant that I got that was supposed to be the latest one with the motion and funding sources. So I just want to bring up, unless it's been changed, just make sure that it is covered. I know it's 4 years down the line, and for the amount of money, you have 4 years, and you could always go back to the board and get an extension anyway. But if you are going to look to exempt it from the sunset clause, please take a look at what the latest one is. The one that I was provided by Mr. Tisdale does not have that in there. And that was supposed to be the one for the motions and funding sources.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Anzavino, members of the body, all borrowing articles have to go out to our bond council. They will be going out tomorrow morning for them to review, and any questions that they have regarding the sunset clause will be inserted into the motions. I think there are actually 2 borrowing motions, one for the water department and then one for the fire truck. So legally, what's in the warrant right now, that's a proposed motion. So the actual motion would have the sunset clause, exemption, and et cetera.
All right, thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Any other questions or comments from the public? Article 28, Fire Department Capital Ladder Truck, $2,250,000. Hearing none. Next item on the agenda, Article 34, Police Station Expansion and Renovation Design, $675,000. Do you have a presentation for this? Well, thank you very much, Chief, for the presentations that you did have tonight. Thank you, though. I'm reading off the agenda, but thank you very much, Chief, for showing up tonight and your presentation.
Yeah, I can speak.
Hello,
speak to
Mr.
that.
Tisdale.
Hey, how are you? We will keep it on the. It's in the warrant. The warrant's created. It's there. We will be asking to dismiss that at town meeting.
Okay. So Article 34 will be dismissed at town meeting?
I can give you a little context behind that. It's just to give
Sure,
you
we've come this far.
understanding of the reason why. If you remember, we had a $300,000 feasibility approved at town meeting for that parcel. The big part of it was the site. Can the site contain the proposed building expansion and the parking spaces, right? Those were the big things. We're doing borings on the site. You may have seen boring vehicles out there over the last couple months. We did a full property survey. Obviously, if you're going to fit parking spaces on a piece of property, you need to know the outer boundaries exactly, not within a foot or two. Believe it, 2 feet off on this side, 2 feet off on this side can mean a whole line of parking spaces you don't get. So we did a full survey out there, mapping all the underground utilities. Contrary to what everybody believes about an underground river, there is no such thing over there unless there was some underground man-made canal that somehow now intercepts water and carries it throughout Stoughton. But I am a registered soil evaluator in the state of Massachusetts, so I do know there is no such thing as underground river in Massachusetts. Maybe in the Grand Canyon or something like that, but I do digress, and I would love to have a conversation of what when people say underground rivers are, because there's a reason for it, why they think it's rivers. It's high groundwater tables, things like that, but I can get into more detail later on that. But anyways, so we thought it was only prudent. That analysis is not complete yet. That's part 1. We need to know if we can contain all the parking spaces on that property. Let's just say the analysis says we can't. And then we need to find another piece of property to fit another 10 or 15 parking spaces. There's no sense to go to town meeting and ask for part 2 unless we got the analysis from part 1 complete. So we do need time for that to be complete. It's probably going to be completed right around when town meeting starts, but that's not fair to your finance committee, to town meeting, to say, here it is, here's the results, and then ask you for a vote at town meeting. We want you to digest it. We want to have an informational meeting, things of that nature, and do it the right way. That's the reason.
Well, thank you very much for that. So it's going to be dismissed at town meeting. So any questions on this from the committee? Okay, hearing no questions on this. Okay, no questions, comments on this? All right. So Article 34, questions, comments from the public on Article 34, police station expansion, renovation, design. Hearing no questions from the committee or the public on this, I think we are looking for a, thank you very much for the presentation, Mr.
Motion
Chair.
I'd like
to,
No, we're
no,
looking
motion
for,
to, motion to continue
Let's
the
slow
public
down.
hearing.
Looking for a motion to continue the public hearing.
Motion to continue the
Second.
public hearing to March 12th of next week, because I think.
No,
we
it's
have-
tomorrow.
Oh, I'm sorry, to tomorrow.
So Dave, you made the motion,
I made the
Carolyn the
motion.
second.
Yep.
No, actually, I have to change it to the 6th.
Okay, the motion is to continue the public hearing until the 6th at 7 o'clock, Great Hall, is that correct?
It is the Great Hall.
Okay,
Yeah.
Carolyn's the second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion, you can make it, go ahead.
Okay, Chet,
And I will second it.
Carolyn's the second. Motion and a second on the floor to adjourn, all in favor? Aye. All opposed, hearing none, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much for attending, and thank you very much for the public for watching. Have a wonderful evening.